Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most insane and completely unhinged FNAF fan games ever made. From chaotic mechanics to games with concepts so ridiculous they somehow loop back around to being terrifying, these fan projects get absolutely wild. Some of these genuinely feel like fever dreams brought to life, so let's dive into them. What do you think is the most overused and bloated genre in the FNAF community? I know that might seem like a weird question, but in recent years, I really think I've come up with a really good answer to it. Just something that you see in FNAF games that has become sickening to see. Maybe you think the ransomware trend has run its course and needs a break for a while. Maybe you think boss fight nights have been done to death and we need something new. Or maybe it's something else entirely. Well, for me personally, I think every other FNAF game being about Fredbear has been done so much and I just really need a break. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed from me bringing this up, that is the type of game we'll be talking about today. And no, unfortunately for you, it isn't Fredbear game number 998433, so if you were hoping for that today, I apologize. But stick around because I think you'll really like this one too. Maybe. The game we'll be talking about today is called Welcome to Fredbears, and I'm willing to bet that even if you've seen this game before, you might not know which one it is just from me talking about it, since all of the titles of the Fredbears games are pretty much exactly the same. I would explain what the game is about, but that's what the entire video is, so just strap in, try the Big Mac meal for the first time, and let's get right into Welcome to Fredbears. Welcome to Fredbears starts with an opening cutscene. In this game, we actually play as William, which I think is pretty cool. We get a call from an unknown number, and the man on the other end explains that he works at a storage facility in Utah. I personally didn't even know anybody actually lived in Utah. I thought that was just like some fairy tale place, but hey, I guess you learn something new every day.
Hello?
Hello?
Am I speaking to William Afton?
Yes, and you are?
I'm calling you on behalf of the storage and rental of Utah. Unfortunately, we have gone out of business, and we're accordingly emptying out all of our storage units, except for yours due to the excessive amount of items in your units. So please come to the storage facility at your earliest convenience, or you will be fined. If possible, tonight.
With that, William wastes no time and pulls right up to the storage facility like I pull up to Shotty's house after she had 3 bean burritos from Taco Bell. Jesus Christ. Dude, we're just getting started. What is wrong with me? After entering the building, we go to find our storage unit, only to see a sticky note on the door explaining that the key to our unit is on the desk in the main room, just making me waste my fucking time walking all the way back to the front desk to pick it up, only for us to then have to walk all the way back. Personally, I'm loving the direction this game is going already, aren't you? By the way, during this opening section, we have a to-do list to guide us along the way of what we're supposed to do. And I personally like to imagine that William is writing these notes to himself so that he knows what he has to do. And I think it's really funny that he's writing basic shit like find a unit, open the unit, like he's retarded and won't be able to remember basic things. Anyways, moving on. With that, we open our storage unit and step inside, only to realize that this just might be the largest storage unit to ever grace the face of the planet, because holy shit, this thing is gigantic. I happen to own a few storage units myself, and not a single one is even close to being this big, but that's really besides the point. Obviously, the real reason we're here is to move all of our belongings out of the unit, which I find odd because we only came here in our tiny little dinky car, knowing full well we have a storage unit full of shit to clear out. I guess we just really want to be moving for the next month straight. And now, would you believe me if I told you that even knowing we have to start moving things out, we don't start moving things out? I know. Hard to believe that we would come to this building and not do the one fucking thing we were tasked with doing. So you might be wondering, if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, then what are we doing? Oh shit! Oh shit! Motherfucker old as shit! Look at the motherfucking glasses on that bitch! Dang, a fat motherfucker right here got a big old pot belly on that big boy. Fuck. Well, the answer to that question is simple. All we have to do is walk around the unit and look at sticky notes. As you can see, we have several animatronics around the area, and each is labeled with a sticky note. It seems like these variations of the characters are very early versions of the final designs, which would make sense since most of the Fredbears games do take place a long time ago. Every time we pick up a sticky note, a page is added to our notebook where we're tricked into thinking that we're going to be learning something interesting about the characters, when in reality, that's not true, and we actually just learn how we're going to have to deal with each of these characters once we finally get into the night sections. Speaking of, when does that actually happen? Fantastic question, viewer of questionable age. I'm rewriting that line. That sounds awful. Fantastic question, viewer who probably isn't actually viewing the video, but is instead listening to it in the background. Let me tell you exactly what happens next. After we look at the last sticky note, we hear an alarm go off. Stepping out of our unit for a moment, we see that the door to the hallway we're in has been closed. Looking around, we see nothing weird, and then somehow fucking Circus Baby appears right next to us. Oh my fucking cry ass, bitch! The fuck was that, ho? Who the hell was that? What the fuck baby bitch doing in here? Tall glass of water looking ass. No, seriously, where the fuck did she come from? We look in both directions and see nothing, and then somehow she's right next to us. Tell me how that makes any sense at all. Anyways, we have to do a short QuickTime event to get away from baby and then run to the security office. Now pause. Why the fuck do we have a security office inside of our storage unit? It's not like the security office is to the entire building. No, it's actually specifically inside of our unit. Tell me how that makes any sense at all. Oh yeah, it doesn't. After making our way into the office, we see Baby walk up to the window where we learn the first mechanic of this game. Throughout the night, Baby will approach our window. When she does, all we have to do is shut the power to the office off so that she can't see us, and eventually she'll leave. She will do this several times. It's also just scripted here at this moment. Throughout the game, we'll be able to pull out our notebook and read about the animatronics we took notes on, which will soon be attacking us. Something I chose not to do during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. I instead chose to trial and error things for minutes on end because I forgot that I could look at this notebook. It's also in this notebook where we can see William live writing his thoughts instead of defending himself. This game is split into hours rather than nights, and on the first hour, he writes this.
Building power. It seems like the power in the building is out, except for this security office. The computer seems to be working. I can probably use it to get the power in the building up and running again. Until then, I'll just have to survive.
And with that, we're thrown into the first hour of the game, and this video can finally start sounding like all of my other videos. To start, let's go over the office and the tools at our disposal. During the free roam section, we picked up a flashlight, and we still have that now. We can flash this light, which is exactly how a flashlight works, so I don't know why I told you that. To our left, we have the door to this tiny room. It can be toggled and thankfully has no power system. You will see how I abuse this game's kindness with this mechanic a bit later. And finally, to our right, we have the second threat this game introduces, which I guess I'll talk about right now since he's literally right in our office. This is Fredbear. You might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't Fredbear one of the characters that we saw out in the storage area? And you would be right in saying that. However, this is also Fredbear. It's just another one because why make a new character when we could just fucking not, right? Yay, creativity! Throughout the night, Fredbear will try to get up and attack you. Dealing with him is incredibly easy. All you have to do is occasionally hold your flashlight on him and he'll sit his fat happy ass back down. Your flashlight also has no power, so you'll be happy to hear you don't really ever have to worry about that. Finally, the last thing to talk about is the way the night progresses. Even though we have a clock on our desk, that is very misleading as this game is not completed based on time, but is instead a task-based completion game, which you know what that means. No actual task, and it's just waiting with extra steps. Also on our desk is a computer. Turning on the computer will show two things that we have to reboot, the ventilation and the power. When you click on them, they will slowly start to reboot. And once both of them are rebooted, then the hour will be over. Very boring, but sure, whatever, I guess. Something I want to mention about Baby, since it actually makes sense to mention it now, is what happens when you turn the power off to deal with her. Well, that's very simple. Not only does your door open if it was closed, but of course your computer will turn off as well and progress to rebooting will be paused. Now, that's not a problem at all, but what is a problem is the embarrassing amount of times I forgot to turn the computer back on, leading to the night taking way fucking longer than it ever needed to. So, even though Baby did follow us to the room this night, she surprisingly isn't actually active at this point in time. Who is active, however, is Fredbear. No, not the Fredbear in our office. Well, yes, he is active too. I'm talking about the other Fredbear, the one that we saw a bit earlier. In hour 1, we're attacked by 2 Fredbears at the same time. Talk about the worst double penetration of your life. This is a train you never want to ride on. Fredbear 2, as I will be calling him from now on, will be present outside of your door. Slowly throughout the hour, he will creep closer and closer to your office like Jared Fogle used to creep closer to playgrounds in broad daylight. All you have to do is literally the exact same thing as the Fredbear in our office. Occasionally flash your light through the doorway to scare him away. So as long as you're doing that semi-frequently, you'll be fine. And you'll be doing it a lot because this is what the gameplay looks like all the time.
All I know is DDF, AAF, DDF, AAF. That's all I know.
But yeah, that's all this first hour has to offer, except you'll be excited to hear that this game actually has some post-night minigames that are just as mind-numbing as the actual nights. Aren't you just so fucking excited? I know I am! After the reboot is up, obviously the power goes out since it's all rebooting. During this time, we need to turn around and replace 3 fuses in the generator so that the reboot can be completed. Doing this is very easy, but very time-consuming. You will have to very slowly unscrew 6 different screws to get the fuses out. Each screw will take about 30 fucking seconds to undo, so be prepared to be here for the next 8 years. I'm not very good at math. After all of the screws are out, you have to remove the 3 fuses, grab 3 more from a box on your right, and replace them, then re-screw the goddamn screws. Are you fucking kidding me? Holy shit. Of course, it's not just that easy. Everybody knew it wasn't going to be that easy. During this minigame, you're armed with a lighter. What happened to your flashlight? I literally have no idea. It's not tied to power, so I don't see why we couldn't use it, aside from the fact that the dev thought using a lighter during this section would just be more creepy. Who really knows? Both Fredbear and Bonnie will be coming for your cheeks during this section. However, you'll notice that it's really only ever Fredbear that's a problem, and you'll understand why once I explain how they work. You will have to listen very closely since they both are pretty quiet. Fredbear will attack from your left and Bonnie will attack from your right. When you hear Fredbear moving, all you have to do is turn left and hold your lighter in his face until he sits back down. Something about this lighter though is that it doesn't always light up properly on the first go. So you'll have to flick it quite a few times, which I will admit is pretty nerve-wracking and is pretty fucking cool. I'll explain Bonnie a bit later since the chances of him attacking you during this section are pretty much 0. So for now, let's finish up the fuses and reboot the power and start on the next hour. Something I do actually like about this game is how it really feels like it's one constant night throughout. After you finish the fuse, you turn back around and the next hour continues right there. It's just a simple detail, but a lot of the time it's the simple details I like the most. This hour does introduce someone new, who is really just a copycat of a character we've talked about already. You know, recently, as I've been looking for games, I've been going back on older games I've played on Dxtr Black and wondering why I've never made videos about them. Now that I've finally been starting to do that, it's pretty obvious to me why I haven't. A lot of the FNAF games I've played really just don't have a lot to talk about, and I don't want my videos to be under 20 minutes. That's why a lot of the time in these newer Dxtr White videos, you'll hear me go on retarded tangents more often. I don't want you guys to have a 10-minute video to watch. Anyways, moving on. The new character introduced on this night is Bonnie. Hey, awesome, we were just talking about you. Now, technically, this character is Spring Bonnie. However, the sticky note calls him Bonnie, so I'm going to be calling him Bonnie too, since that takes a lot less time to type. And I have a pounding migraine right now. I want to get this script writing section of the video's pipeline done as fast as I possibly can. Bonnie is pretty much just baby, and by pretty much, I mean he literally is. Bonnie will occasionally walk up to the window in front of you. When he does, all you have to do is turn the power off until you hear him knock on the glass, and then a few seconds later, you'll be able to turn the power back on again. And for the love of fuck, do not forget to turn your computer back on like I did.
Holy shit. I wonder how many more times I'm gonna forget to turn that thing on and just absolutely just fucking ream myself.
Anyways, now we can move on to talking about the post-hour minigame. Hooray! You may be wondering what there even is to talk about here since it's going to be the same thing every single time. And that's a very good question. But worry not, I have an answer for you. On this hour is when Bonnie will finally be here in this reboot section. However, he's also joined by the other Fredbear. Fredbear 2 works the exact same as Fredbear 1, except he attacks the opposite side. Same shit, different day with him. Just turn your lighter on and he'll go away. Bonnie, however, is a bit different and is literally completely useless as a character during this section. He will only ever attack your right side, and he has a different sound cue that plays from Fredbear 2. The difference between the sound cues is incredibly noticeable, so you will literally never mess them up and confuse the two. When Bonnie attacks, all you have to do is not turn the lighter on, so you can literally just fucking ignore him. It's not even like you can't move. No, you can move as much as you want. You can even keep unscrewing and he won't bother you. So like, what is even the point of having him there? I have no idea. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about. Let's move on to the next office hour. Hour 3 is quite literally the exact same as Hour 2. No new threats are introduced, everyone is just a little bit more aggressive. That is, except for Bonnie, who is a fuck ton more aggressive. So much so that you may have him attack pretty much the moment you turn the power back on. He means business and he's not messing around. And of course, when you're like me and forget to turn the computer back on, with how much he attacks, this hour will slow to a fucking crawl. It's completely brutal and one of the most painful experiences I've ever been through, and I've been mauled by a dog and hit by a car, so that's saying a lot. I really just feel like there could have been so much more done with this game. Truly, they had a pretty interesting free roam section at the beginning of this game, and they just don't use it anymore. This gameplay loop of turning back and forth is the rest of the game. I think it could be really interesting if, let's say, for example, after completing an hour, the batteries to our flashlight died, and we had to exit the security office and walk around the darkness looking for new batteries while the animatronics patrolled around and we only had our lighter. I know I personally hate stuff like that, but really anything would be an improvement from how boring this game really feels. And like, not even introducing a new character each hour makes it even worse. It's so boring. Like, I just saw Fredbear, Fredbear 2, and Bonnie. Why are you only giving me them again? Add something new. Even if it's not a new character, add a new mechanic. Make the task you have to complete each night something different, not just a fucking waiting simulator. Make one of the tasks be a minigame where you have to move through a maze or something, like the Tron game you have to play when you're doing heists in GTA Online. That'd be so fucking cool. But no, instead we're given barnacle dick, bottom of the barrel ChatGPT ass ideas. Actually, that's not even true. I bet ChatGPT could think of a somewhat different way to spice up the gameplay a little bit. This game looks really good and the voice acting we've heard is amazing. It's just really disappointing that the actual gameplay of the game isn't interesting at all. Anyways, of course, after completing the task, we turn around and do the exact same fuse box task again, which by the way, I will mention is very odd. Why are we having to replace the fuses every hour? This seems very counterintuitive. William has to be spending upwards of $12,000 on fuses monthly to keep this shit lit up. And we know he is because when we first entered the unit, the lights were on. And from the phone call, it sounds like he hasn't been there in a while. So like, what the actual fuck is going on? So much of this game just doesn't make any sense. But whatever, let's just move on to the next hour where hopefully something new is introduced. Hour 4 or 3 a.m. once again, and I'm not kidding, literally introduces nothing new again. Once more, it's just Fredbear, Fredbear 2, and Bonnie, except they're more aggressive than before. But spoiler alert, there's so little to do during this game that even if their AI is increasing, you really won't be able to tell since it's not any harder. Flash, turn, turn, flash, turn, turn, flash, repeat. If you ever hear Bonnie, shut the power off. When that is the gameplay loop, it really doesn't fucking matter how fast you make the characters, since the only difference you'll actually notice is that each night turns into a fucking slog because you have to turn the power off for way longer, meaning that your tasks aren't being finished, which doesn't make the game more challenging, it just makes the game way more uninteresting. If you haven't noticed, we're halfway through this game and we haven't had to close the door a single time. During my playthrough, I was choosing to, but there's literally no character throughout the game so far that would make you close this stupid door. I'm honestly confused why we can't have it closed the whole time. Sure, Fredbear 2 will kill us, but I wonder how that's even possible. If we have a robot that's able to open the only door defending us, I think we have a much bigger issue on our hands in all honesty. Since I literally have nothing to talk about right now, I guess I could bring up what happens if you don't turn the lights off for Bonnie, since I'm just now noticing I didn't do that. If you don't turn the power off, he'll punch a hole in your window like he's Blank from Five Nights at Candy's. That's about it, but guys, come on. on, can you tell I've really got nothing to work with in this game? And of course, the post-night minigame is nothing different at all. Fuck trying something new and exciting, right? The entire FNAF community are all retards and they'll just eat up anything you put in front of them. And that pisses me off because it worked on me. I beat the fucking game even though I thought it was boring. Maybe I'm the problem. I have no idea. I want to keep yapping about stuff since I can tell this script really isn't going to be much longer if this game keeps going in the direction it's going in, but I've really got nothing else to talk about here, so let's just move on to Hour 5. Hour 5, thankfully, does actually give me something else to talk about. 2 new things, actually. Don't know why you couldn't have just split them up so that the last night wasn't so fucking useless, but oh well, I suppose. This night reintroduces Baby, so let's get to talking about her since her mechanic has changed just slightly. Same thing as before. She'll walk up to your window on occasion just like Bonnie, and all you have to do is turn the power off. But then she'll walk to the left. This signals that she's about to attack your door, so you'll need to close it. Now you might be thinking, how are you going to be able to turn the power back on and close the door by the time Baby is able to get over to it? Well, come on in real close because that's a really good question. And luckily I do have an answer. You're just not really gonna like it. You can actually close the door while the power is out. Yes, I'm serious. I lied before. There's just so many goddamn problems here. I don't even know where to start. What do you mean the door can close while there's no power? It's a mechanical door. It needs power. What is this bullshit? Name one other FNAF game with a closable mechanical door that can be closed while there's no power. I'll wait. Oh yeah, it fucking isn't any because that's stupid and doesn't make any fucking sense, now does it? That means that the only thing the power controls is the light to the room we're in. No, not the flashlight, the room light and the computer. That's literally it. What do we even need to reboot anything for? This seems completely pointless now. I could probably talk all day about this, and while I would love to pad out for runtime, I also don't want to piss you guys off, so let's just move on. The final threat introduced on this night is Foxy, who is probably the most useless character in this entire game. And I know that may come to you as a surprise, because every character in this game seems pretty useless. Foxy attacks via the door. And I bet from myself saying that you can already guess exactly how he works and exactly why he's so useless. But in case you aren't able to put those pieces together by yourself, allow me to assist you. Occasionally, Foxy will sprint at your door and you'll have to close it to stop him from eating your butt. However, since the door has no limit to how long it can be closed for and it doesn't open when your power is off, you will probably never see Foxy throughout your entire playthrough. Just occasionally hear him slam on the door. This may make you wonder what I was talking about earlier where I said I was going to abuse this game's kindness. Editor, run it back. You will see how I abuse this game's kindness with this mechanic a bit later. This is that point. Since you still need to have the door open to be able to check on Fredbear 2, you can't literally have it closed the entire night. And I get the funny feeling that with this in mind, the dev thought the possible problem of closing it the entire night would be solved. But guess what, fucker? You couldn't be more wrong. All you have to do is open the door, quickly flash in less than a second to reset Fredbear. Since, contrary to what I've seen other people do in their playthroughs, you don't actually have to hold the flashlight on him until he leaves. You just have to hit him with it for longer than 1 frame. Then all you have to do is immediately close the door again. And if you get good enough at doing this, even if Foxy just so happens to be running at your door in the exact moment you open it, it won't be open for nearly long enough for him to enter the office. So he is quite literally a useless character. Awesome. So even though 2 threats were introduced on this night, it's basically like no threats were introduced at all. I love my life. Speaking of useless, we have the next post-night minigame to talk about. And this time around, it actually does do something a little bit different than the previous ones. Just kidding, I fucking lied like normal. It's just as boring and repetitive as the other post-night minigames we've mentioned. So let's stop wasting our time and just move on to Hour 6. Hour 6, surprisingly, once again introduces something new to the mix. And I'm actually not lying this time. However, with them introducing a new character on this night, it actually means that each hour could have had one thing introduced each, and this game just chose not to do that, which will forever be mind-boggling to me. This new character is Freddy, I think. I have no idea what the fuck it is. When you guys see it, you will have to comment down below on who you think this is supposed to be because I really can't tell. This new threat, who I'll call Freddy, is another window attacker, since we've already established that the door is useless. When he approaches your window, he makes it clear that he has night vision, since turning off the power will not be enough to stop him. What you'll have to do instead is actually a lot less annoying, but hey, at least it's something new. Once he approaches, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on his face until he leaves. This could have been a good opportunity to turn him into a sort of Candy's 3 fight where he moves his head around and you'll have to follow it, but unfortunately that did not happen and he's just stationary. But again, at least it's something new that actually makes me have to do something else. And from what I could tell during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, he doesn't make any sound cues when he reaches your window, giving you an actual reason to flash the window consistently because up until this point, you didn't have to, and for some reason, you can't even really see him in the window. While I am happy that this game has started to pick up on things to talk about, I do wish they were a bit more interesting so I could talk about them a little bit longer without repeating myself. But sometimes I just can't be that lucky. So once we repair this shit one last time, there's only one more thing to do. And no, it's not another repair post-night minigame, thankfully. Instead, it's just listening to a cutscene that, in all honesty, is pretty cool. So I'll just let you guys sit back and take a look.
Hello, William. It's me. You still recognize me, don't you? Well, you should, I suppose. After all, it was you who left me like this. Why didn't you do anything? Scared of getting the blame. Now standing here, 17 years later, all the blame falls on you. 70 years, William. You left me here for 17 years. Soaking in my own blood. Rotting in our creation. Praying you would return. Now you're here. You've endured what I couldn't. And now you have to live with it. Our legacy.
And there we go. An unknown person walks up to us in a Springlock suit. I can only assume this person is supposed to be Henry, since he refers to the suit he's in as our creation and we play as William. But I actually think this is a really interesting twist on the original story. Instead of William dying in the Springlock suit, Henry did, and William just hid his corpse away in a storage unit for 17 years, which is an insanely long time to be conscious and unable to do anything. So I can totally see Henry's frustration here. However, of course, you guys know me, I always find a way to complain about something, and I found something that doesn't make sense during this cutscene to point out. Do you want to tell me how the hell that text was appearing on the screen? How was Henry able to set that up? Did he program that into the monitor and then rehearse the actions he does at the window for 17 years just waiting for William to arrive? That's really the only thing I could think of that would make this make any sense at all. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But with that, that's all Welcome to Fredbear's has to offer. What it really has to do with Fredbear, aside from the fact that there are 2 Fredbears in it, I really don't know. I feel like this game could have done a lot better with a better name, but what do I know? Overall, I think Welcome to Fredbear's looks wonderful and has some nasty and awesome character designs. However, the gameplay loop is just so unfulfilling, boring, and headache-inducing from all of the whiplash that I really just couldn't enjoy it fully. And while I do think that the final cutscene is pretty cool, and I like the way this game changed the original story, I don't quite think that's enough to warrant me recommending this game to people who are looking for an interesting FNAF experience. Well guys, another day, another new FNAF fan game coming out of the woodworks, and that FNAF fan game being spammed in my comments until I cover it. Usually when this happens, of course, I'm inclined to look at the project that people are talking about, and a lot of the time I add that game to my list of games to play over on Dxtr Black. Well, today is no different. One of the newest FNAF fan games to come out this year is none other than Fred and Pals, the game we'll be covering in today's video. Plenty of people have asked to hear about this one, and for a pretty damn good reason. There's a lot to talk about. So strap in as I talk about the highs and the lows of Fred and Pals. Wasting no time at all in detaching my balls and gently tossing them into night one, we already have a bit to talk about. Mainly the tools at our disposal, how they function, and why it makes me want to put my balls in a meat grinder. To start, we have several directions we can look in inside of our office. Obviously, we can look directly in front of us, to both sides of us, and of course, behind us. In front of us is our camera system. To our left and right, we have our doors, and right behind us is a power switch, but we'll talk about that later. What is important is this little handheld device we have, the SMU. While looking behind us or while standing next to either of the doors, we'll be able to pull up this device. While it's held, you'll be able to select any of the 4 characters in this game. And by holding down the trigger, we can shoot something in the direction we're aiming. What are we shooting? That I don't know the answer to. The device only has 3 shots in it before it needs to recharge, so we can't just be spamming this thing throughout the whole night. Unfortunate, I know, but I guess video game balancing will do what it has to do. Speaking of these characters we need to shoot, who are they? Well, actually, before we talk about that, you're getting ahead of yourself. We need to talk about the cameras first. Oh boy, the cameras. This is a lot more than you think it's going to be. Fred and Pals decided that the camera system is where they needed to deviate from the normal FNAF game. And while I do appreciate the creativity, I don't appreciate it by itself. I want to preface, it's not bad, it's just a lot. To start, there is a metric shitload of cameras. Of course, my favorite thing when it comes to cameras, you can't move your mouse to select which one you want to use. You have to use A and D to scroll through each of the cameras. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. However, unlike most other FNAF games that use this mechanic, it's not the slowest thing on planet Earth. No, quite the opposite, actually. You can scroll through cameras so quickly that sometimes you'll surf through 2 on accident. It is incredibly easy to do this and will 100% lead to you getting lost as to which camera you're currently looking at, and figuring out how far away you are from the camera you actually want to look at. Speaking of looking at the cameras, let's talk about how fucking sick these ones look. They use night vision, which is why they're so green, but it also puts this crazy filter over them, which I think looks incredible. But hush up, I'm not done talking about how the camera controls. I know I'm all over the place with my explanations right now, but I don't care. You may be thinking while looking at these cameras, hey Dexter, these camera shots are kind of small. Why aren't the cameras scrolling back and forth? Fantastic question. The answer to that is you have to scroll them yourself. I'm getting flashbacks to late shift at Nintendo World. Please don't do this to me again. You have to click and drag with your mouse to scroll the cameras. But the best part? The cameras scroll in the opposite direction that you drag it in. So that's a bit disorienting to get used to, but get used to it, you must. The last thing to talk about before we move on to the threats, moving back to the doors, on top of being able to murk animatronics with our SMU, we can also close the doors like normal people. However, the doors are controlled with a crank of all things for some odd reason. No idea why, that seems pretty weird. But that means that the door can only be closed as long as you're holding it. But we'll get more into doors and how useful they are a bit later. For now, let's talk about the one threat this night introduces, Fluppy. Yes, by the way, I'm serious. That is actually this character's name. It's really just Bonnie, but the devs thought that the name changes in this game is what they needed to crack down on. Don't get me wrong, I love all the silly names in this game, but I do need to point out how silly they are. Fluppy's goal is to make it to your left door, just like Bonnie from FNAF 1. He will slowly creep through all of the cameras until he gets there, and this is where I want to mention how fucking nasty these characters look, especially the poses that they're put in on these cameras. Seriously, look at Fluppy, bro! Tell me it doesn't look like he's a child predator. He does! Child predator ass rabbit. Look at that. Fucking look at that look in his eyes, dude. What do you think he doing on a regular basis besides grooming minors on Discord? Anyways, moving past that, once Fluppy gets to the storage closet and has a successful movement opportunity, he will enter the doorway to your office. However, you will not be able to see him in your doorway since it's too dark. This gives you a reason to be keeping track of him on the camera, because if you don't, you're going to get fucked up because he doesn't make a sound cue when he's at your door. When he is at your door, you need to pull out your gun, select Fluppy, and well, Just watch what happens next. Boom, bitch! I didn't like that. Yeah, honestly, one of the creepiest animations I've ever seen. The moment I saw this, I knew this was going to be getting a Dxtr White video, and here we are now. Once you shoot him, he will go back to the stage and the cycle will continue. Survive until 6 a.m. and we'll move on to night 2. Night 2 is pretty much the same as night 1. To start, we obviously get a phone call from the phone guy. He asks us if we used our SMU on Fluppy. Obviously, we know we did. He says they found him standing in the back room looking up at the light. They went to grab something, and when they came back, he was back on stage. I have a real question. Why on earth? Why the fuck ever would you work at a place like this? You're telling me that the robots are moving, you don't know why they're moving, you're positive they shouldn't be moving, and yet here you are, still working while they're doing so. I feel like any sane person would get the fuck out of there immediately, but I digress. Night 2 introduces one new threat, that being Chica, or as this game calls her, Henrietta. Henrietta, as I'm sure you could have assumed, works in the exact same way as Fluppy does, except she attacks your right door instead of your left. Same rules apply to her. When she enters the doorway, which just like Fluppy, you won't be able to see, all you have to do is select her on the SMU and blast her ass and she'll go back on stage. This night did bring up a concern that I had, however, and that comes with the way the cameras operate. I mentioned how you can't just select any camera that you want, and you have to surf through each of them one by one. Mechanics like that always make me nervous in FNAF games since it takes away a large element of your control. And in a genre like FNAF where control isn't really something you have, I'm sure you could understand how this would get pretty scary. So this brings up the beginning of a flourishing strategy. To avoid switching cameras as much as possible, I needed to figure out which cameras were the last cameras that both Fluppy and Henrietta appeared on. That way I could just camp those cameras and not have to worry about constantly following them around. So I learned that Fluppy's last camera is the storage room and Henrietta's last camera is the delivery camera. And with those two important pieces of information in my noggin, we're safe to move on to night 3. With night 3 coming along, a new character is added, but this character leads to a new strategy needing to be thought up. But before we talk about this new character, I want to talk about the phone call we get on this night, as it gives some pretty interesting information. To start, phone guy mentions that Henrietta was found in the kitchen banging pots and pans, but when he entered to investigate, she froze, which I think is really fucking creepy. It's like some Toy Story shit. She only moves when you're not looking. He explains that she's supposed to do that during the day to make the kids think she's cooking, but during the night, it should be impossible. The second thing he brings up is their head technician who should be coming to fix this problem. His name is Will. Now, could it be a coincidence that the name of this technician is a shortened version of FNAF's main antagonist? Well, yes, it very well could be. Do I think it is? No, not really. We don't get much information about him on this night, however. Anyways, moving on to the threat this night introduces. Voss. This game's Foxy. Except you want to hear something really funny? He doesn't work how Foxy works at all, and he actually makes me piss fire. Voss is present in the sheriff camera. If you pull up your camera, you'll notice several areas are red and have an electricity symbol present next to them. Throughout the night, Voss will progress through multiple stages on his starting camera. When he leaves this camera, you will hear him whistle. When he whistles, that signals to you that he has gone to one of the cameras with a fuse box. You will have to quickly find which camera he went to and hold space to send him back. So, technically another find them on the camera mechanic, which I'm not too thrilled about. However, at least there's only 4 cameras he can be on. And if you're anything like me, you remembered the tap pattern to get to each one so you can quickly navigate all of them. Oh yeah, and I totally forgot to mention that one of the fuse boxes is directly behind you. I totally forgot that my office has one of those too. Oh my god. I'm paranoid. Yeah, that caught me off guard pretty well and kind of scared the shit out of me, but hey, I think that's actually really cool that during a find them on the camera moment, the character can also choose to show up in your office. Do I like that it's a find them on the camera mechanic? No, but at least it's slightly different than the usual. But knowing that he makes a sound cue, the strategy from last night hasn't changed all that much, and we can move on to night 4. Night 4 brings a threat I'm honestly not sure how to beat, if I'm being completely honest. Quick recap of the phone call. Voss is misbehaving like Fluppy and Henrietta have been, and Fred did something odd. He stopped performing during the day and leaned forward, a bunch of oil spilling out of his chest. Phone Guy used the SMU to restart him, but instead of continuing to play, his head just snapped towards him. Personally, I would shit myself. Apparently using the SMU in front of customers is against the rules, and now Phone Guy has a meeting with the executives tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. I personally think that's a little silly. What would they prefer he do? Just leave Fred leaning with oil leaking out of him in front of the children so they think he fucking died? What would have been a better choice in these guys' eyes? Anyways, tonight introduces Fred, and like I said, I'm not totally sure how he works. And that will make sense as I talk about him, I promise. Fred will slowly make his way to your office, and he can attack either of your doors. Every time he moves, he laughs, so that's nice. And when he's at your door, he also laughs. So, following him on the cameras is not necessary at all, which I love since there's already a lot in this game. Now, when Fred gets to your door is when I get confused. You can see me live trying to figure out how to deal with him over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. At first, I just tried using the SMU on him, which seemed to work when I did, but then he killed me. The next thing I thought was maybe he's just a close the door on him character, so I tried that, but then this happened. Oh shit, I don't think I'm ever supposed to let him get here. Or maybe I'm supposed to flash him and then hold it shut? Oh boy, come on. Turn 6 a.m. right fucking now. Uh-oh. Please, Chica, be nice. Fluppy can't hurt me. That was so gay what I just did right there. So yeah, he'll just pound on the door for the rest of the night. And if you ever let go, you immediately die. So obviously in that clip, I beat the night. And with the way I now write my Dxtr White videos, I haven't actually attempted night 5 at the time of writing. But if I had to guess, you have to flash Fred with your SMU, then close the door on him. But I guess I'll get myself confirmation on night 5. All right, night 5. The night I said I'd get confirmation on Fred's mechanic. I actually think writing the way I do bodes great for how shitty this game is at explaining anything. This night is the night I tried flashing Fred with the SMU and then closing the door. Spoiler alert, it did nothing. He still just pounded on the door the entire night. So that brings up the question, how the fuck am I supposed to deal with this guy? Well, I've got one more theory, but before I talk about it, let's talk about this night's phone call. Not much happens in it, but Phone Guy does tell us the meeting with the higher-ups didn't go well, and that he's getting fired. He said someone will be coming to collect his things, but they didn't tell him who. I find that odd because from everything that I know, you collect your things, and someone is with you to make sure you don't, steal anything. That's how it went when I got let go from my previous job. So I find it weird that he doesn't even get to do that. He says that the building is closed to the public and explains that the only reason we're still here is because of a safety protocol. Now, I usually wouldn't question an explanation like that. However, Phone Guy laughs and says, "Yeah, right," after saying so. But he doesn't elaborate further. He says tonight is his last and that he'll be fired, so I doubt we'll be hearing from him tomorrow. Now, on to my theory on how Fred works. Throughout this video, you might have been wondering, Dxtr, if you didn't know how to deal with Fred, how the hell have you made it this far? And the answer to that question is, I just got really lucky. I got very lucky that Fred only attacked me once on each of the nights he was present. I got very lucky that he only chose to attack near the end of the night. I also got lucky that Fluppy, hands down the most aggressive character in the game, happens to attack the same door that Fred chose to attack, so that while I held it closed for the whole night, Fluppy was unable to get in, and I'm incredibly lucky that both Henrietta and Voss chose not to attack me after Fred had gotten to my door. This is hands down the weirdest situation I've ever had while playing a FNAF game. I've never not understood how a character worked and still have been able to get through the nights with said character active. But anyways, my new theory on how Fred works is a sad one that makes my penis invert like a groundhog. I'm thinking you have to not allow Fred to ever get to your door by using the go back feature on the cameras to constantly push him back. Is this terrible? Yes, but that's exactly why I think that's what this game is going to want me to do. We'll find out on the final night, but I think this shows a great point of how you really need to explain things to your player. I should not be struggling this hard to figure out what a character does. Sure, you could argue that the phone guy saying Fred's head snapped towards him when he used the SMU was a hint to not use the SMU on him, which sure, I think that's a bit silly, but we'll roll with it. But even if that was the case, the game explained to me how the other characters worked in detail. Why not Fred? Also, if I can't use the SMU on Fred, then why the hell is it even an option on the SMU unless to hint at the fact that I can use it on him? Maybe I'm just going insane, but I don't think I am. At least give me a death explanation like a lot of FNAF fan games do. I love that shit. Anyways, time for us to move on to the final night. Hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, so night 6. Needless to say, is not even remotely close to what I expected it to be at all. But that's not a bad thing. Kind of. Let me explain. This night begins with us getting another phone call. If you're anything like me, you may be wondering who could be calling us, considering the phone guy, whose name is Dan, by the way, I just never mentioned that, was fired. Well, a man by the name of William Afton is calling us. Remember that weird technician named Will I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it wasn't a coincidence like I suspected. William tells us he's been watching us throughout the 5 nights we've been here and tells us that our run ends tonight. This night serves as a semi-boss fight night, as once the night begins, you'll notice all of the animatronics disappear off of the cameras and are replaced by only William inside of the spring Bonnie suit. You might be wondering where the rest of the characters went, and here's your answer. Ew. Hold up. The ghosts are fucking around me. Hello? How did you guys get here? What do you have in your hand? Is that a knife? Bitch, don't come near me with that thing. So yeah, that's pretty terrifying. Anyways, how do you deal with Afton? Well, here's actually the really funny part about that. You don't. Because you can't. All of the characters are blocking your doors, preventing you from moving over to them. So when William gets to your office, you'll be dead no matter what. However, you getting knocked out by William in the office is intended, as after you come to, you'll find yourself in the back room of the building, stuffed inside of a springlock suit, with William standing in front of you. He has a classic villain monologue, and I'll just let him do the talking.
Good morning. So, finally awake? Head still ringing? Do you feel that? The weight, the locks tightening? That's the sound of control. Every bolt, every spring. My design. They call me a monster, a murderer. But I built life. I give them purpose. The world out there forgets. But inside these walls, they remember. You'll join the show now. You'll keep them company. That's what you wanted, isn't it? To be part of something bigger. The difference between us, I learned how to survive it. And I will always come back.
Thinking that we're going to be left for dead, we notice a phone on the desk in front of us. This night has us make our way over to this phone to call for help. However, we're obviously in a springlock suit, so that really isn't going to be a walk in the park exactly. We have 3 things that we can do during this section. We could walk forward slowly and lift either of our arms up. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see 3 rectangles on both sides. These are how many spring locks are in each of our arms. If all 3 go off in either, we lose. Also, if we walk for too long, our danger meter will turn red and the head of the suit will snap shut. Whenever you're holding up your arm, that arm's spring locks can't be activated. However, you can't lift up both arms at the same time. So you really have to balance which one you hold up while walking. Generally, this is the strategy. Hold up one arm and walk forward 3 steps. switch arms and take another 3 steps. Repeat this process until the danger meter on the bottom of the screen turns yellow. Once it does, switch from taking 2 steps to only taking 2, since when the danger level is yellow, you can't really take any more than that. After completing all of that, we make it to the phone and call authorities.
911, what's your emergency?
Fred and pals. Old site. Parts and service. The suit, I'm trapped. It's crushing me.
Sir, stay calm. What is your name?
Doesn't matter. Listen. There are bodies here. Kids. Inside the suits.
Say again?
He did it. The technician Will. William Afton.
Is he present?
Yes. Somewhere nearby. Locked me in. I tried to stop him.
The rescue units are dispatched. Stay online with me and keep talking.
The children. They won't let me go.
Sir, what is that noise? Hello? Hello?
Authorities have apprehended William Afton, former technician for Fred and Pal's Pizza Entertainment. Following an anonymous emergency call, authorities conducted a thorough investigation inside the abandoned pizzeria. They recovered the remains of the missing children, trapped within the animatronic suits, and also discovered the security guard's fate sealed within another suit. Evidence confirmed William's role in the horrifying events. With the truth finally revealed, the pizzeria was closed permanently and the community could begin to heal. Though the security guard did not survive, their courage brought justice. William Afton and his grim legacy will remain forever trapped within the darkness of Fred and Pals. And now, at last, the soul of the children find peace and can move on, freed from their torment, leaving behind a sense of calm and healing. And there you have it. With that, we get the good ending, and Fred and Pals comes to a close. Overall, I think Fred and Pals was very fun, albeit a short fan game, which there's obviously nothing wrong with. This game has such a recognizable art style, and I especially love the way the cameras look. This game was wonderful at building atmosphere, the gameplay loop is interesting enough with the length of the game, and the ending does something completely different, which is always super awesome to see. Also, if you were curious, since the final night isn't a typical night, I never actually got the chance to go against Fred again to see how he worked. And at the time of writing this, I still don't know exactly how to deal with him. But I honestly think it's a lot funnier if I don't tell you, since I never learned how it worked and I was still able to beat the game. My guess is that you have to push him back in the cameras, but unless someone in the comments explains it, I'll never know, and I think that's funny. What is the most disturbing thing you've ever seen while playing a FNAF game? That's a serious question. I really want you to think about it. I'm sure a lot of people are already thinking of the third tape from the original Dormitibus, but that's not quite what I mean. I mean, what's the most disturbing thing you've seen? Literally seen with your own 2 eyes, or one if you're half blind. Let me cut to the chase. The game we'll be talking about today is the Fazbear Tomb, made by Maroon Fox, who, fun fact, I've actually known for many years, and he reached out to me to ask me to voice some of the characters in this game. Rest assured, that's not why I'm talking about it. The Fazbear Tomb has some of the most shocking imagery I've ever seen in any FNAF game ever. So let's waste no time and jump right into it. With nowhere better to start than night one is where we will start, and we actually get to walk into the building instead of just being dropped right into our office, which I always think is pretty cool. Starting outside, we enter the building and walk into the dining area where we can see Bonnie and Freddy. Chica is also on stage, you can tell because you can see her feet, but unfortunately the rest of her body is blocked by Freddy's enormous belly, which is just not ideal. Moving to our office, we sit down and I notice something immediately which I think is really cool. That being, instead of turning like in most FNAF games, you can actually turn 360 degrees inside of your office. It's such a small touch, but I really like it. Moving on to the tools at our disposal. There really isn't much to be said here. We have cameras and 3 doors to our office. 2 of the doors can be held shut, but the 3rd door cannot, instead allowing us to play dead outside of it. Why can't we play dead next to all of the doors? That I don't really have the answer to. Oh yeah, we can also shine our light in all of the doorways, so that's nice too. We get a phone call from the phone guy, pretty typical stuff. He gives us the normal spiel of how to deal with the characters, which might make you think they'll all be activated on this night, but you'd be wrong. For some reason, we're told how to deal with every character on night 1, even though only one threat is introduced on this night. Not really sure why, but whatever. Oh yeah, and one more super cool thing about this game, the phone guy is played by me, so that was super fun.
To make sure he doesn't get you, you must... Well, that is all the training for today. Good luck on your shift and have a killer time at Freddy's.
There's 3 doors. What do you mean? What do I have to do? Also, why am I'm talking to myself? It feels weird. Moving on to the one threat this night introduces, that being Bonnie, who is as basic can get. Bonnie's goal is to attack the one door in your office with no actual door on it. He'll wander around the cameras before getting there. You can flash your light to double check that he is indeed there, and once you know he is, just play dead. Phone guy says to do so for 10 seconds. Kind of odd how he just knows how long he's supposed to do that for, but I'm gonna look past it. Something I'm not a super huge fan of in this game is just how long the nights are, especially night 1. You'll notice that each minute in this game is about 1.5 seconds in real life. And with a night like night 1, where only Bonnie is active, and at the same time during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I actually never even had Bonnie come to my door, and I was playing Raid Shadow Legends the whole time. It just leads to this night feeling like a slog. But after making it to 6 AM, we complete the night, and we can talk about the post-night 1 minigame, which may just be one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in my life. During this minigame, we have to take apart Bonnie because there's been complaints of a bad odor coming from him. We start by opening his head, removing his arms, and cracking open his torso. Removing the plate, we see this. That's right. We actually get to see the corpse of one of the missing children stuffed inside of Bonnie. Truly one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen in a FNAF game before. I don't think any other game that I know of has ever actually directly shown you the bodies of the children. So needless to say, seeing this was crazy. After that shocking reveal, we get a very odd cutscene. A large amount of words are said, but I can't really make out most of it. I'll play it here with subtitles of what I could make out, but I'll need your guys' help in the comments to decipher everything.
But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I'd say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well?
Night 2, here we are. Let's just say action from these robots picks up quite a bit on this night. Night 2 only introduces one new threat, that being Chica, as I'm sure you could have guessed. And I'm gonna be honest, Chica brings up a really big glaring flaw that this game has. That being that the gameplay is boring as fuck. But let's explain what Chica does first. Chica will move around the cameras until making her way to your second door. Once she approaches, you can flash your light to check she's there, and if she is, hold the door closed until you hear her go away. This is also the first night I actually had Bonnie attack me, and something I noticed about these two is just how long it takes for both of them to leave your door. It's like a solid 10 seconds, at least. Which, yes, I know the phone guy said, but I didn't think he literally meant it. But can you notice the issue this game already has? Both Bonnie and Chica do the exact same thing. And while sure, you could argue that Bonnie and Chica do the same thing in a lot of games, but when the cast of characters is so small, I think that should make you more inclined to make everyone do something unique. This franchise has been around for over a decade. I would like to see the community do something different, and I feel like this game tries to hide the fact that everything is the same. Sure, you have 3 doors, but 2 of them are just a close them when someone is there mechanic, and the other is a play dead mechanic, which by the way is literally exactly the same as holding the door closed, except there's no animation, the screen just turns black. And this is what I mean. It feels like the game is trying to make you think that Bonnie has a different mechanic from Chica because it calls it something different. But in reality, you're just holding control for both of them, so it feels a bit disingenuous. But on the other hand, the character AI has definitely ramped up on this night. During night 1, I was never attacked by Bonnie the entire time. This time around, I was attacked by him a good handful of times, and Chica tried to rail me a couple of times too. So at least during this night, I couldn't play another game at the exact same time like I could on night 1, which is a good sign of progress. Oh yeah, I should probably mention the phone call on this night too, since it is pretty interesting. It seems like a previous night guard was able to intercept the phone's connection. Don't ask how, just accept it. He talks about how the robots are out to kill. We already knew that. And he explains Foxy and Freddy's mechanics, which is good since the phone guy on night 1 cut out before he could finish talking about Freddy and how he worked. I'm obviously not going to tell you how to deal with Freddy and Foxy right now since they aren't even active at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 2 minigame. Something I want to quickly preface is that technically these are not post-night minigames, they're technically pre-night minigames, but I'm so used to talking about the minigames after talking about the night. Oh, just know that this minigame I'm about to talk about isn't a post-night 2 minigame, but is really a pre-night 3 minigame. Who really cares though? It's all in the same order. In this game, we play as a very slow, fat child. Not based. The most horrendous, creepy-looking 8-bit spring Bonnie I've ever seen in my life appears to tell us he has a gift for us. A very special one. We follow him through 2 rooms and see a gift box on the ground, but Spring Bonnie is nowhere in sight. Upon approaching the box, Spring Bonnie sprints at Mach 46 in our direction and presumably murks us, ending the minigame. So, not nearly as interesting as last night's minigame, but maybe this showed what happened just before what we saw in that last minigame. Or who knows, maybe this is one of the other dead children altogether. Right now it's hard to say, but let's continue on to night 3. On night 3, I was expecting one new character to be introduced, since it seems we're only going to be getting the 4 characters from the first FNAF game. Introducing one every night makes sense to me. But no, we have 2 threats to talk about on this night. So let's start with the least interesting one, Freddy. Freddy works, quite literally, in the exact same way as Bonnie and Chica, with the exact same attack pattern and the exact same way of dealing with him. He will attack your 3rd door, except he doesn't like to be flashed by your light. So if you ever do, he'll kill you instantly, even if you close the door directly afterwards, which doesn't make sense. So this brings up a question of how you're supposed to know when Freddy is there. Well, this game tells you that you'll be able to hear Freddy breathing when he's outside of your door. However, I was unable to hear the breathing, ever. Or, if I was able to hear the breathing, I was unable to tell it was breathing, since there are so many other fucking random noises that happen constantly throughout this game. You wanna know why I never heard the breathing sound effect? I checked the code of this game myself, and yeah, it's literally never programmed to play the breathing sound. Here is the code for the breathing sound. You see that start sound, pick random 1 to 4? There are 4 breathing sounds, and this plays one of those at random. You'll notice that these 2 blocks aren't attached to anything, and I never moved them. By the way, there is nothing that triggers these 2 blocks. This is all of the code for Freddy reaching your door. You'll notice a few weird things about it. That it starts by running a broadcast for Bonnie arriving. Spoiler alert, I have no idea why it's called Bonnie Arrive. The only thing this broadcast does is run a function in another sprite that plays footstep sounds. The other weird thing you'll notice about this code is that, yes, it actually does start sound, but not sounds 1 to 4. Instead, sounds 5 to 10. Well, what are sounds 5 to 10? You might ask. Well, they're footstep sounds. All of them. Sounds 5 through 10 are all footstep sounds. But why the fuck would you even need to play footstep sounds if right before that block you have the Bonnie Arrive broadcast that plays fucking footstep sounds? And why are there breathing sounds in this game that are never used, pretty much making it impossible to know when Freddy is ever at your door? I have no idea. And yes, by the way, I checked everything in the AI management code, and nowhere besides those 2 blocks that are detached and never called that I showed earlier does the code ever call for sounds 1 through 4 to ever be played. I have no idea what's going on. But worry not, I found a strategy for dealing with Freddy. We know because of the Bonnie Arrive script that whenever any character shows up at the door, we'll hear footsteps. Well, whenever I heard footsteps, I'd check Bonnie's door and Chica's door, since I could safely flash my light on them. If I didn't see either of those 2, then I'd know it has to be Freddy who's at my door, and fun fact, Freddy doesn't appear to make footstep sound cues when he leaves either, so that's just great. Anyways, let's talk about the other threat this night introduces, Foxy. Foxy is pretty simple, but he is different from the other 3, thankfully. Foxy is in Pirate's Cove. Occasionally, throughout the night, he'll start humming like he tends to do. When he does, all you have to do is go to his camera and flash him with your camera light a few times and he'll close the curtain. So he doesn't even really do what normal Foxy does. Not that that's an issue, just thought I'd point it out. So, here's what the core gameplay loop boils down to right now. Start the night, literally sit there and do nothing until you hear Foxy humming or footstep sounds. Deal with Foxy if you hear him, and if you hear footstep sounds, check Bonnie, then Chica. Deal with either of them if you see them, and if you don't see them, close Freddy's door until you hear the next sound cue. Repeat for 8 fucking minutes, since each minute in this game is a second and a half, and you'll beat the night. Meaning we can move on to the post-night 3 minigame, technically pre-night 4 minigame. This is just a cutscene, but a creepy one at that. The marionette box opens, and the marionette crawls out with the most disgusting sound I've ever heard. She offers us a gift box and says that if we take it, we'll be gifted new life and that he'll never be able to hurt us again. This tells me that we're the soul of a child in this cutscene, and of course, the marionette is reanimating us. We accept the gift and the marionette crawls back into its sticky sounding box, and we move on to Night 4. Night 4 adds nothing new to the gameplay loop. However, it is where I noticed a plethora of bugs in this game so horrific it's hard to describe. And pretty much every single bug stems from Freddy and the fact he will literally just ignore your door. He will also sometimes not play his footstep sound cue when he gets to the door. Oh yeah, and this part isn't a bug, but multiple characters can attack at the same time, guaranteeing that you lose the night because of RNG.
That sounded rather loud. Good thing I went and checked. I said, good thing I went and checked.
Fuck! Okay, well, you can't put Bonnie and Freddy there at the same time, dude. That's literally impossible. Impossible to deal with.
Really, bro? Bonnie, walk off.
What the fuck, dude? This game fucking reeks. Holy shit. It's a broken fucking mess. So yeah, doesn't that just look like a ton of fun? Because it wasn't. Anyways, since there isn't actually anything new to talk about, we can move on to Night 5, which actually does introduce something pretty sick. But of course, before we talk about it, we need to talk about the pre-Night 5 minigame. It's a pretty shitty, boring minigame. It's literally just the opening to FNAF 2. We're in the POV of Freddy, and we can look back and forth at Bonnie and Chica. Nothing super crazy or groundbreaking happens. We don't even see the marionette like we do in FNAF 2. Alright, who cares? Now we can move on to Night 5. Well, let's just say that Night 5 is something different, acting as this game's boss fight night. Every character we've seen up until this point has been disabled, and we hear the doors to the entrance of the building open, only to see none other than William Afton inside of the Spring Bonnie suit enter the building. That's right, the boss fight is with Afton. Why is he here? I have no idea. Is it ever explained to us why he wants to come kill us? Just a security guard that he himself likely hired? Not at all. But are we gonna complete it nonetheless? Yes. Honestly, calling this night a boss fight is pretty generous, as Afton does not do anything interesting or different from the rest of the characters. He can attack 2 of your 3 doors, and I'll talk about why in a bit. He can attack the 2 doors that, well, actually have doors. Obviously, when he's there, just close the door and he'll leave. However, Afton is faster than every other character we've seen so far, so tracking him on the cameras to tell which door it is he actually went to is really important, since you won't have time to check both doors without him killing you. Once again, like Freddy, even if the fucking door is closed. Hello? Ah, bitch! The door's closed, dude. The bugs in this game, they're unbearable. They're unbearable. Unbearable, dude. The door was closed. Now, you may be wondering, why doesn't Afton attack the door that Bonnie attacks? The one with no door? Well, that would be because it'd be impossible to defend yourself. You might think that that would make it the perfect door for him to attack, but from a gameplay standpoint, you really can't have him attack that door, now can you? Because he's not going to believe that you're already dead, since he's a human and not a stupid fucking robot. So this once again brings up my point, why even make the first door's mechanic playing dead? Why not just make it another door? It would literally function the exact same way, plus it would give Afton another means of attack and make his boss fight actually make a little bit more sense and slightly more difficult. But let's even look past all of that. What happens once you beat the night? Well, get this. Afton enters the fucking office anyways. So like, what is the point of whatever we just did? Clearly he has the power to be able to get into your office regardless. This kind of feels more like what we did throughout the night didn't really matter, which, by the way, the nights in this game are way too fucking long for how boring the mechanics are. A game like Next Week at Freddy's can have really long nights because there's a lot of variables that can change throughout the night to make it interesting for a long time. But when every single character in the game is dealt with in the exact same way, 8-minute nights are just completely unnecessary and make the game feel like a drag. But like I said, after you complete the night, Afton gets into the office and we get the following cutscene.
I found you at last. Did you really think you could hide? Did you really believe that you could cower away from me? I own you. I own this place. This is my kingdom, and I shall take you to my hell.
So there you have it. The marionette appears from the fucking ceiling. I guess she was just hiding up there the whole night, and she sets off the spring locks in Afton's suit. Which, by the way, once again, I have no idea why he's even wearing the spring lock suit. The robots are not even activated on this night, so it's not like he's trying to disguise himself from them. If anything, wearing the suit you killed them in would probably just piss them off. I'm not really sure. William dies in front of our eyes, and the Fazbear tomb comes to a close. What is your favorite Roblox game? Don't answer that. I don't want to see any comments saying Forsaken, that game is terrible. Let me be more specific. What is your favorite Roblox FNAF game? Maybe you say FNAF 2 Reimagined. Maybe you say dog watching. Well, I personally have found a new FNAF Roblox series that we could add to the conversation. Today, we'll be talking about Five Nights at Marcus, a series many of you may have never heard about. However, with 3 games being in the series, I'm willing to bet you've heard of the third. It's just a little game that goes by the name of Far From Land. Yeah. That's something even I didn't know about until starting to do work for this video. This series tries a lot of interesting things and succeeds and fails at a lot of them. Today, I'll be going over each of those things, so join me as we dive into the world of Five Nights at Marcus. And with Five Nights at Marcus, we obviously start with the first one, and night 1 of game 1. And with night 1 on the way, we bust a nut into our office and can start learning about everything important that we need to learn. To start, let's just talk about our office itself. Obviously, we have our monitors for our cameras in front of us, but we also have a picture of a cat named Oscar on our desk, and I think that's great. Also, if you open the drawer on your desk, you'll see another picture of Oscar. Just lovely. Looking up, we see a big vent, but we'll focus on that later. Turning around, we'll see the door to our office, which cannot be closed, which is a bit concerning just knowing the type of game we're playing right now. And behind us is also a maintenance panel, which we will be using to complete the night. How do we do that, you ask? Great question. On this maintenance panel, you will see several tasks we have to complete. That's right, Five Nights at Marcus uses a task-based completion system rather than a time-based one, which can be a blessing and a curse in some instances. The tasks are mind-numbing. Just press a button and wait for it to load 5 times and the night is over. But what about the threat this night introduces? That would seemingly be Marcus himself. You can find him on the cameras just laying on the fucking floor. He has no legs, so we can all laugh at him for being crippled. Where's your life alert, buddy, huh? Get up! Marcus will try to get to the door behind you. However, Marcus makes no sound cues, and because he has no legs, is not visible at the door or window either. So, how are you supposed to know when he's actually arrived? Another great question. Gosh, you guys are on a roll today. The answer is pretty simple. You really have to make sure you're watching him on the cameras, and once you see him leave camera 1, you'll know he's at your door. But Dexter, how are you supposed to keep him away? Oh my goodness, another amazing question. You're doing so well. Inside of your maintenance panel, along with your tasks menu, you also have a shock menu. Go to the shock menu and use the shock when Marcus is outside of your door and he'll scream like a bitch and run away. And then his cycle will continue. Night 1 is piss easy since Marcus barely moves, but don't worry, this is going to get much more complicated as we go. So let's move on to night 2. Night 2 rolls around and we have one new threat to talk about. And for some reason, I'm not gonna lie to you, this night serves to show me how stressful this game is about to become. Let's talk about it. The new threat on this night, not gonna lie, I don't know the name of him, so I'm just gonna call him Green Man. Green Man attacks in the same way as Marcus, except noticing him is a lot easier. When he gets to your office, he has 2 phases. One outside of your window, and one where he's standing in the fucking doorway. Which I can't lie, scared the shit out of me the first time I saw it. Oh. What was that? I didn't like that. No, I fucking didn't. What the fuck was that about? Which you can see in my full playthrough over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Exact same thing as Marcus here. Whenever you see him in your hallway or at your door, shock his ass and he'll reset. Now, if you remember about 24 seconds ago, you'll notice I said that this night is stressful. You might be wondering how that's even possible considering there's only 2 threats and they both do the exact same thing. Well, my reasoning for this surrounds Marcus and the fact you have to watch him so closely on the cameras. Marcus moves incredibly quickly, it seems. Like, way faster than I would have ever expected for a Night 2 character to move. I was expecting to be able to do my tasks in bursts of 50% before checking on him, but that got me killed very quickly. We gotta get this thing to 100 before we go check on him, though. That's my goal. We gotta get you to 100, bro. Perfect. Fuck me in my ass. Okay, well, I didn't expect you to be that quick. He was a quick guy. Then I decided to do them in bursts of 25%, and that was working up until the point in the night where Green Man starts moving. Then I had to start doing my tasks in bursts of 10%, and even that felt like I was cutting it down to the wire with time management. And now, here's the really weird part. Throughout the first half of the night, Marcus was moving at the speed of sound. The moment Green Man activates, Marcus sits in his final camera for the rest of the night without moving. And this is so stressful for exactly the reason you think it is. With Marcus in his last camera, it only takes him one more movement opportunity to reach the office, which means I'm on edge the whole night, constantly checking to make sure he doesn't move. Because he's been stationary for so long, I'm thinking, there's no way he's not gonna move. He's going to anytime now, except nope, he never fucking moved. Just sitting there like a dick, scaring the shit out of me. Whatever. On to night 3. With night 3 coming along, so does another threat we get to talk about. And in all honesty, this threat doesn't make the game much harder, but Marcus 100% does. The threat introduced on this night is once again someone I don't know the name of, so I'm going to be calling him Vent Guy. And I'm guessing purely by saying his name, you can already guess what this guy is going to do. That's right, the exact same thing as Marcus. No, I'm not kidding. Vent Guy will attack your vents, and he actually has two different means of attacking you. The first will have him do exactly what Green Man does. He'll go through vent 1 and show up outside of your office. When he does, all you have to do is go to the shock menu on your maintenance panel and shock the vent. His second form of attack will have him attack the vent directly above your head, or vent 2. When you see him in this vent, for some reason, you don't shock the vent. This time around, you have to give him the Withered Foxy treatment and flash your light at him several times to make him go away. Turns out he's epileptic, and there's nothing I enjoy more than giving epileptic people seizures. Also, quick side tangent, I feel like it'd be hard to drive with epilepsy. And who knows, maybe you can't. There have been times where I'm driving on the highway, and on the sides of the road, they have the little bumper things to prevent people from flying off the road. But these little bumper things have several support beams holding them in the ground, so when you're driving during the sunset, oftentimes the sun will line up with those fucking support beams and proceed to strobe me for the next 6 miles on the fucking road. Anyways, let's keep talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's game, shall we? Again, Vent Guy isn't really that big of an issue. Who is a fucking issue, however, is Marcus. At first, I thought Marcus was moving at the speed of fucking sound because there would be several, and I do mean several instances where I noticed Marcus leaves camera 1, so I shocked the hallway. Then moments later, I get killed by Marcus. At first, I thought this meant Marcus turned into a fucking bullet train, but no. I think I understand what's happening here. I'm pretty sure there's a window of time between Marcus leaving camera 1 and actually showing up outside of your office. And I think I was shocking the hallway during that window of time, which meant when Marcus actually did get to my hallway, I was never actually able to shock him, and I obviously couldn't see him on the cameras. I think this is a very, very bad mechanic. If this is truly how Marcus works, if Marcus can't be seen when he's in the hallway, and he makes no sound cues to indicate he's entered the hallway, and you have a window of time between him disappearing off of all of the cameras and reaching the hallway, and your shock cooldown is very long, this brings up a very obvious problem of literally never being able to time Marcus properly and consistently. What needs to happen is when Marcus leaves camera 1, that means he is instantly in your hallway. What ended up happening constantly during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, is I would see Marcus leave camera 1, so I'd shock the hallway. Then I'd check camera 4 to see if he'd been reset. When I saw he hadn't, I'd rush back to the maintenance panel and spam the shock button, which was always still charging at this point. Shock the hallway a second time, and only then would I see that Marcus would reset. This is very bad. One of the only flaws I've noticed with this game so far. This is not fun. This is not challenging. This is not innovative. This is just bad game design. And if the devs are looking for anything to change about this game, this is 100% the thing to change. But with that, we can move on to night 4. All right, recording Dxtr here. Giving a little note as I'm reading this script and remembering that I wrote this. Marcus, I was told that Marcus, after he is in camera 1 and he disappears, he doesn't go to the hallway. He actually goes to camera 3 after camera 1. However, thinking about that doesn't make sense because quite literally, every time I shocked the hallway and then shocked it a second time, Marcus was reset. So you're telling me that if that's true, what I just said right now, that he goes to camera 3 after camera 1, camera 3 is his final camera, you're telling me that every single feasible time Marcus left camera 1 and I shocked twice, he made a movement opportunity to camera 3 and then my hallway. He made that every time in that window of time without fail. I don't believe that. I have trouble believing that. I think what I wrote originally is correct, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Guys, I've got some great news for you. After a long time of waiting, the Skaggs plushie is finally live. I've been working with Makeshift to make the perfect Skaggs plushie possible, and I think he's turned out perfect. We obviously talk a lot about Five Nights at Freddy's on this channel, so I figured it'd be great to make him in the exact style as the FNAF plushies, which means he'll easily be able to sit on your desk or shelf without falling over. You guys made this possible. I could have never done this without you. To everyone who supported the petition a few months back, thank you guys so much. But you guys have to be fast fast, as Skaggs is only around for a limited time. Once this campaign is over, he'll be gone forever, so you really don't want to miss out. This is hands down the coolest thing that has ever happened to me as a YouTuber, and I never thought 2 years ago when I started this channel that it would get me this far in life. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate every single one of you. You guys have made my dreams come true, and this is one small way I can celebrate that. So go get yourself a Skaggs plushie before time runs out. He's the perfect gift for anyone who likes stuffed animals, and I guarantee if you put this guy in your bed, the Huzz are gonna flock to you like birds. So that's always a plus too. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and thank you to Makeship for making this plushie with me and putting up with my constant tweaks to make sure that Skaggs is as perfect as he is. Sorry for interrupting. Let's get back to the video. Night 4 rolls around, and with it, another threat is introduced. Once again, the name of this character is currently unknown to me, so I'm going to be calling him Screen Guy. Obviously, as I'm sure you could have already seen, there are 6 screens on our desk, and so far we've only ever used one of them. Well, Screen Guy is here to change that. Throughout the night, at random, he has a chance to appear on any of the non-camera screens. He'll make a subtle sound cue when he appears, and all you have to do is click the monitor he occupies, and he'll go away. Incredibly basic character, not really much to worry about. Something about this night I want to mention is 2 things that I learned. The first being that Green Man's name is Shut. I personally prefer Green Man, if I'm being honest. The second thing I learned while playing Night 4 is that as long as your maintenance panel is down, no matter which of the 2 screens you have selected, you will still do your task. Okay, let's just pump this up to 40. And now we'll shock. Oh, wait, it's still going. Well, isn't that just the best thing you've ever seen in your life? I didn't know it was gonna do all that now. Which means if I notice Marcus has left, now that I know I basically have to shock him twice to properly time it, I can start on my task, flip to the shock panel, and while I take a billion years shocking him twice, the task I selected will still be performed the entire time. I'm sure this was probably obvious to most people, but shut up, I just figured it out now. Anyways, on to Night 5, since there wasn't a whole lot to go over this time. Once again, Night 5 introduces nothing new and just goes about being a harder version of Night 4. While a little boring, there's nothing wrong with that. It is the first game in the series after all. However, there is something interesting to talk about. But before I talk about it, I want to mention the names of the characters I've failed to mention so far. Vent Guy's name is officially Dahomey. Yes, I'm serious. What a silly name. I personally prefer Vent Guy, I'm not gonna lie. And then the weird monitor guy's name is officially Shadow Marcus, which, by the way, I didn't mention this. If you ever don't click his monitor in time, he'll just appear behind you and disable your maintenance panel, ensuring that you will die. Anyways, on to that interesting thing I mentioned about 20 seconds ago. After completing Night 5, the game doesn't just end like I expected it to. Instead, we get this cutscene. But there we go. After completing Night 5, we get a sneak peek at possibly our antagonist, and Five Nights at Marcus comes to a close. But that's not before we're able to go into the extras menu and read a little bit about the characters. We see that Marcus was never finished being built, which is obviously why he has no legs. Shut was originally designed to be so tall for intimidation, as he was going to be a security robot, but he soon turned hostile. Dahomey goes into your vents because he's so small, and he was the last robot made before the company had to hand over all of their robots for investigation, which I find interesting because they're not being investigated in this game. They're just sitting in a building. And finally, the company has given no word as to what Shadow Marcus even is, so yeah, that doesn't sound weird and suspicious at all. So yeah, that's all Five Nights at Marcus has to offer. But of course, judging by the length of this video, you guys know we've got a lot more to talk about. And that's because this series actually has 2 additional games packed full of content. So let's move on to Five Nights at Marcus 2. Five Nights at Marcus 2, while not a remaster, don't let that fool you, as while graphically it may not look as good as the first game, mechanic-wise, I think it is pretty solid. And this game is much more stressful than the first. So let's get right into Night 1 because just like in the first game, there's no weird minigames. Night 1 drops us right into the office and really shows us how much more challenging this game is going to be. To start, let's talk about the tools at our disposal. Of course, we have our camera system, nothing special, and just like the last game, we're able to turn around to do our tasks. But we'll talk about what those tasks are in a bit because they are much more interesting than the first. Sticking to the front of our office, we have a flashlight that we can use to flash the large window in front of us. You'll notice there's 3 separate areas of this window you can flash. You'll also notice that this flashlight drains incredibly quickly, like really fast. So what do we do about that? While looking at the front of the office, you can flip down your maintenance panel in order to repair things or shock things. If your flashlight goes dead, simply repair it and it'll fill right back up. Nothing crazy. Now, let's move on to talking about the task-based system this game has, and why it's much more stressful than the first. To start, this time around, we're not just pressing a button and playing the waiting game. This time, it's actually something we have to pay attention to. We will receive several shipping containers throughout the night. When they arrive, we must scan them, which takes a while, and when they're scanned, we'll get some information about them on the left side of the screen. The information predetermined on the right side of the screen is what should be inside of the shipping container. If both sides match, we accept it. If they don't, we deny it. Every time we do this successfully, we gain a point, and if we fuck up 5 times, we lose. Fucking up is pretty hard, but once these nights start to get more and more stressful, it will become apparent how messing this up could be easy. Do this 12 times and the night is complete. But of course, we all know it's not just that simple, as of course we do have other threats to deal with at the same time. Just like in the first game, Marcus himself is the only character introduced on Night 1, and he is very simple. Even more simple than in the first game. However, he does drain a precious resource far more than any other character does. Marcus will move through the cameras to get to your window. Luckily, this time you'll actually be able to see him when he's at it. And when he is, all you have to do is spam your flashlight at him and he'll reset. But of course, with the flashlight draining so quickly, dealing with Marcus is not something you're going to want to be doing very often, as repairing the flashlight can take a hefty amount of time when you really don't have it. Plus, we'll need to use that flashlight to deal with the other threats that get introduced later, but for now, Marcus is all we have, so beating this night should be easy and we can move on to Night 2. Night 2 honestly does way more than I expected it to, and is where I learned that this game has quite a few more characters than the first. So let's not waste any time and talk about the first threat this night introduces, Shut. Returning from the first game like Marcus, Shut plays a role in introducing a very important mechanic into the game, that being your shock system. Inside of your maintenance panel where you repair your flashlight, you'll notice a shock button at the bottom. Switching to the shock screen, you'll see you can shock either the vent or the office. Shut will slowly make his way to your office, and fun fact, whenever a character reaches camera 5, which is the camera right before they show up in your window, they will actually make a sound cue as you'll be able to hear them walking, which is very nice. When Shut shows up at your window, shock your office and he'll go away, wherein you'll then have to wait for the office shock to recharge. Not so bad. Hopefully we just don't get a fuck ton more characters that also require us to shock the office. The next threat introduced on this night goes by the name of Him. Stupid name, I know, but let's just roll with it, alright? Him will make his way to your office and show up at your window. When he does, all you have to do is shock the office and he'll leave. Uh-oh. Something tells me this game is about to get super repetitive and mind-numbing and luck-based. But those are the only new threats this night introduces. But before we move on to Night 3, there's one more mechanic I need to mention now that we've brought up shocking. You only have 5 shocks. When you run out, you'll need to repair your shock to refill it. You usually have plenty of time to do this at this point of the game, but I get the funny feeling it's going to get a lot more difficult as we progress. But with that out of the way, we can move on to Night 3. Night 3 only adds one new threat, and the way the game made him sound made me think he was going to be interesting.
What are the animatronics? Take a shortcut through the vents to your office. Make sure you flash. What?
17! But I was sorely mistaken. This night introduces Vent Boy again. I already forgot his name, and I don't feel like checking again because I remember that it was something really stupid. Vent Boy does pretty much the exact same thing that he does in the first game, yet they somehow managed to make him more boring. Vent Boy obviously travels through your vents. When he makes it to your window, you'll see him directly in front of you. Unlike the original, where you have to shock the vent, this time around, you just treat him like Marcus and flash him a bunch of times until he leaves. Very boring. I don't know why they didn't make him a vent shot character. That just makes sense. It's also at this point of the video where I want to mention a pretty glaring flaw that this game has, and I'm sure you might have already caught on. There is so far no reason to ever check your cameras throughout this game, and in fact, even the sound cues aren't necessary, as you could pretty easily beat what we've talked about so far with the game muted. Here's what the strategy boils down to right now. Start the night and immediately start working on tasks. Every time you send a container, turn around and very quickly flash the 3 sections of the window to waste as little flashlight power as possible. If you don't see anyone, do your next task. If you do see someone, deal with them. If it's a shock character, shock them and then repair your flashlight before turning around and working on the next container. The only time you won't repair your light here is if you need to repair your shock instead. Repeat this 17 times for night 3 and you have it completed. Is this night hard? No. Do all of the characters make you feel intimidated? No. Why? Because even though we have 4 characters active at this point, there are still only 2 mechanics to deal with all of them, as this game continues to dive into the FNAF 2 repetition problem. But let's hold out some hope and move on to night 4. Night 4 is nothing special. No, literally, quite literally nothing new is added on this night at all. And for some reason, during my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I actually got attacked far less times than I did on night 3, which I thought was really weird. The only thing that actually changes on this night is how many cargo containers you have, which on this night was 18. Boring stuff. Let's move on to night 5 where something interesting actually does happen. Night 5 does something different, thankfully, that being introducing one new threat that actually really changes something about the gameplay loop, which this game 100% needed. This new character is Vent Boy 2.0, and I'm calling him that because, once again, I forgot his fucking name. Vent Boy 2.0 adds something from the first game that I wasn't a super huge fan of. As I'm sure you could have guessed by his name, he travels through the vents, except unlike Dahomey, he doesn't drop down in front of you for you to flash. He works exactly how Marcus does from the first game. He'll travel through your vent cameras. Once you see him disappear from them, you know he's about to attack. During this time, all you have to do is shock the vent, and he'll reset. While not a hard mechanic by itself, it does hurt my dick that I actually have to try to beat this game now. Although, it is good that at least now finally on night 5, we have a reason to use the camera. Too bad we only get one night with him, as night 5 is the final night Five Nights at Marcus 2 has to offer. However, we still have one last game to talk about, and it's not called Five Nights at Marcus 3. I actually didn't even know that the next game we'll be talking about was even a part of this series, that game in question being Far From Land. So let's jump right into that. Far From Land starts in a very interesting way. Unlike both of the Five Nights at Marcus games, Far From Land actually has something other than just night sections, as this game opens to a cutscene about cargo ships that work for Celadon, and go figure, we play as the person driving this cargo ship. And oddly enough, we're referred to as Marcus by the phone guy. Hey, recording Dxtr once again. No, we fucking aren't. We're not called Marcus. I don't know why I fucking wrote that. We're called Malcolm. Guess I'm retarded. Anyways, let's continue. Speaking of the phone guy, he's nothing special on our first voyage in the game. He tells us how to deal with problems, blah, blah, blah. Let me do that for you guys. To start, once again, like the other games, Far From Land is a task-based completion system, which I really like. And this game's task is by far the most interesting and engaging so far. We have to literally just drive the fucking ship. That's the task. While we're piloting the ship, we will be able to see several icebergs in front of us. We will have to steer the ship away from these to avoid crashes. And once we reach a certain point, which is marked on a monitor in front of us, the voyage will be complete. Of course, it's not just as easy as that. We also have a maintenance room to keep track of. The ship we're on is very old and is prone to breaking down. We can check the ship's integrity with one of our monitors, and once it gets too low, the ship will stop moving and sirens will start to blare. At this time, we must go back to the maintenance room and fix one of a few busted pipes at random. Don't worry about the massive scary vent in front of us. We'll talk about that later. The only other thing for us to talk about on this night is the one threat this game introduces. I'm assuming this character is shut, just given the fact how large this character really is. On one of our monitors in front of us, we can see a layout of the ship. Unlike every other game so far, we can't actually check the cameras, which is really a good thing since the last 2 games really didn't have any reason to. Every time a character moves, we will get a signal on this monitor to show us exactly where they are. Obviously, Shut is the only character active on this night, so he's all we have to talk about. Shut, being the most basic of the characters, does the most basic thing. He will wander around the ship until he reaches the hallway directly behind you. You'll be able to hear him when he arrives. Turning around will show him inside of the hallway, but you don't have to do anything at this point. The next time Shut moves, he will be right up next to you, so you need to make sure you're facing the hallway when this happens. As he walks up to you, you'll need to hold your breath so he thinks you're not alive or something. He'll check you out, make sure you're a robot or something, and then he'll turn around and leave, and you can go back to driving the ship. Very simple character, but I do think him getting so close to you is super cool. But that's all the first voyage has to offer. But good news for us, in this game, there's actually something to do after each night instead of just moving on to the next. We have the first post-voyage section where we need to fix up our old bum-ass ship. During this section, we're in an area that's dark as fuck. We're equipped with a flashlight and a checklist. We'll have to find several jerry cans around the map, fix several pipes, shut off the power, and find and replace the fuse of the ship's generator. Then this night will truly be over. Of course, it's not just as simple as that, as there is a threat lurking around. Do I know the name of this character? Just like most other characters introduced in this series, no. But I'm sure I'll find out the more that I play. For now, I'm going to call this character the Puppet because its drawing kinda looks like a discount marionette. The puppet will randomly wander around the ship as we're doing our tasks. This place is dark as fuck, and using our flashlight is essential. Every time we move to a new location, we'll have to pause and listen for the puppet's breathing. Even though it's a fucking robot, it still is loud. When we hear it, we must hold our breath until it leaves, wherein we can then continue our tasks. Very simple overall, but I do think it's really cool they're adding something to do after the main night sections. With that, we can move on to Voyage 2. Voyage 2 is much the same as the first. We've got a slightly longer distance to go and a new threat to talk about. This one being a lot scarier than the last. I want you to take a solid guess whether or not I know the name of this character. Do you think I do? What's that? You think I know the name of this character? Well, you haven't been watching this video then because I have no fucking idea what this thing is called, so I'm gonna be calling him Water Guy. Hey, recording Dxtr here, once again, I'm back. Apparently this is fucking Marcus. Does it look like Marcus? No, but it's Marcus. Water Guy uses a mechanic that has to do with water, if you couldn't have guessed based on how I named him. One of the monitors on the panel in front of us shows off our water integrity. This is basically just explaining how much water the ship is currently storing. Pulling the lever next to it will increase how much water is stored if it ever decreases. But that brings up the question of how it decreases. Well, that's where Water Guy comes into play. Just like Shut, he will make his way to where we are. However, he uses a different entrance. If you turn to where Shut attacks and then turn left, you'll see a new door. This door has no light and there's no way to see into the doorway. I'm sure you can see where this might be going. And you'd be right. You will not be able to see Water Guy when he's in the door. And with no cameras, how are you supposed to track him? Well, that's where that trusty motion detector comes into play. When you see that he's near the entrance, quickly whip around to that doorway and pull a yellow lever that releases a sprinkler system into the doorway for some reason. Not really sure why this is here, but it is. When you do, you'll see Water Guy spark, since you know he's a robot and they don't really fuck with water and such, and then he'll reset. Nothing crazy, but he is for sure going to be one of the more annoying threats throughout this playthrough. So now, let's move on to the post-Voyage 2 section. Not even really sure why I'm talking about this section. It's the exact same as the last one, except the objects are placed randomly somewhere else, and it seems that whatever monster is down here is more aggressive. Overall, super simple. It's time to move on to Voyage 3. Voyage 3 is longer than Voyage 2. This is going to be a pattern that repeats itself. Also offered on this voyage is yet another threat for us to worry about, that being Dahomey. A character I surprisingly remembered the name of, but that's only because it's so fucking stupid. Dahomey, like he is in the other games, is a vent character. And where is the only vent on the ship we can access? That's right, the maintenance room. Luckily, we can track him on the motion detector like the other characters, and when we see him in the vent, all we have to do is whip over to it and hold our flashlight on him until he goes away. Very easy, but it is another character to drag us away from the task that continues to get longer and longer each night, but That's all this voyage adds. Moving on to the post-voyage section, which is actually something different this time. Instead of inspecting the top deck, this time we're inspecting the bottom deck. In it, we have another plethora of tasks, such as fixing leaky pipes, replacing fire extinguishers, rearranging pipes, and finally refueling the ship. All of these tasks are pretty simple. However, there is one threat looming over our heads, quite literally the entire time. That being the puppet-looking thing again. Hey, recording Dxtr again. This is a different fucking puppet. I don't know its name, but it's a different one. Occasionally, while we're walking around the lower deck, he'll drop down from a vent in the ceiling. Using a wrench we acquire on this night to complete our tasks, we have to whack the shit out of him to make him jump back into the vents. We only have a certain amount of stamina, and since we need to swing the wrench to fix leaky pipes, we have to balance how much we're swinging at once. Once we get into the final room, all we do is refuel the ship and we're ready to move on to the next voyage. However, before we do that, I want to talk about something stupid that this game has. Quite a few months back, I was actually playing this game on my second channel, Dxtr Black, but I stopped on episode 3 because this post-voyage section of the game was bugged. I said I'd come back to the game after it was fixed. What would happen is that the game would literally just freeze when doing certain things, and I was even able to still replicate it now, which happened in my newest playthrough of the game. What? See, look, I already broke the game. Turns out this bug is all tied to the FPS of the game. If you use the highest FPS to 40 like I do, not only can this bug occur, but it will also fuck up your camera movement 6 ways to Sunday, making you whip around so fast it gives you whiplash. This is the same problem I was having all those months ago. So, if you turn your FPS down to 60, not only will it fix the whole whiplash problem for some reason, it will also completely fix the freezing bug I had. I have no idea whatsoever how FPS has to play into any of this, and this is not the first game I've played with this weird problem. Weirdly enough, the Poppy Playtime games also have bugs on higher frame rates as well, the main one being that the grab pack will pull you upwards far fucking slower on higher FPS. Super weird, but I needed to point it out. On to voyage number 4, which is entirely new territory for me once again, and with this voyage comes one of the scariest threats yet. Lore-wise, not really gameplay-wise, I'm gonna be honest with you. During the phone call, it gets intercepted by a guy named Mason. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to know who Mason is at this time, but I'm gonna be so honest, I have no idea who the fuck Mason is, and I really can't be fucked to figure it out. Mason talks about how this new threat, who he calls the Kraken, has gotten on the ship and that it's very dangerous. Apparently, this robot is what the company doesn't want anyone knowing about, and we're completely alone on this massive ship with it. The Kraken's mechanic is pretty interesting, but I think it could have been done a lot better. The Kraken can be seen on the front of the ship through your window while you're driving. By holding shift, you can cause the horn of the ship to go off whenever you see the Kraken, blow the horn like the hose do, and he'll go away. When your horn integrity runs out, all you have to do is go to the maintenance room and fix a pipe, which will then fix your horn. I don't really know how that makes any sense, but don't question it. That's just what we have to do. The Kraken does have another mechanic, although I personally never saw it. The Kraken has a chance to enter your maintenance room. If you ever see him in there, just turn around and that's literally it. Hey, recording Dxtr again. This isn't the Kraken that does this in the maintenance room. It's another fucking character I don't know the name of, but yeah, no, he was just never mentioned by a phone guy. It's just fucked me, I guess. Overall, I think the Kraken could be a cool mechanic. He kind of hides like he knows you're looking for him, but he always hides in the same spot. I think it would be a lot cooler and a lot more interesting if the Kraken had several hiding spots throughout the front of the ship that he'd hide in at random. Doing this would not only make the gameplay loop more interesting, but also keep the player on their toes throughout the entire voyage. Now, moving on to the post-voyage section. Spoiler alert, it's exactly the same as the last one. Doing the same tasks, albeit one of the puzzles is different, but still very simple, and the puppet thing is still trying to turn our guts into soup. Refill the tank at the end of this section of the voyage, and it is over, and we can move on to the 5th voyage. Voyage 5 adds nothing new to the gameplay loop, just being a harder version of Voyage 4, and a lot harder, that is. The characters really ramp up their AI on this night and get a lot more aggressive, which is an oddly nice change of pace. What really gets interesting is this post-voyage cutscene.
doing this? You think you can just take us away and destroy us and leave no trace of us left? I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. You have made a mistake doing this, and you know that. Malcolm, I know everything about you. You are just like everyone else I've killed. Weak. Maybe I know why you are even here to begin with. Is it because of your brother? I know you're hurt, and I know you want to take revenge. But you know deep down that you'll never defeat me. Never come back here. Never tell anyone about this. Or else, you'll have to face me.
And with that, we're surprisingly thrown into a sixth voyage. A sixth night is something that none of the other games have had so far, so this actually makes me very surprised. And turns out this final voyage is a boss fight with the Kraken, which is the name of the robot we just saw in the cutscene. Not actually the robot I was calling the Kraken earlier. I'm sure you could have guessed from this whole video, but I don't think the series is very good at explaining names. The Kraken obviously plays the role of all of the characters we've seen on the voyages so far, with a small twist when he plays as Shut and Dahomey. In both cases, when dealing with him, he activates a rat from Five Nights at Candy's 3 mechanic, where you have to track his head while he moves around. Awesome change of pace. I love that they added this little extra piece of detail, really ties everything together. The dude that sits outside of your front window, and Scrap, which is the name of the character that I thought was the Kraken that sat in your maintenance room, had a chance to do it, and you turn around, it's that guy, his name is Scrap. I found this out only because of the fucking settings at the end of the game, because they never say his fucking name in the game. It's just stupid as fuck. But that's really it. Deal with all of the characters and try to avoid the fact that the Kraken killed a guy and attached his rib cage and head to his own fucked up robot body. Yeah, tell me that's not the most fucked up shit you've ever heard in your life. After completing the voyage, we get one last cutscene where we seemingly willingly drive the ship right into a giant rock to sink the entire thing and destroy ourselves, along with the murder robots that are inside of it. Honestly, a very good decision in my opinion. Really taking one for the team there, Malcolm. I appreciate it, G. But with that, everything is destroyed. We unlock the extras where I learned Dahomey wasn't even Dahomey the entire time I've been calling him the wrong fucking name, and that there are like 7 human characters that have a paragraph of text beneath them, all characters I'm supposed to be familiar with. Spoiler alert, I am not, so I'm just gonna pretend like I never opened the extras menu, and I'll just say that Five Nights at Marcus series comes to a close. Overall, I really think that this is a great series. I think it started off pretty rocky, but overall it's clear you can see a real improvement from one game to another, especially with how amazing Far From Land is. Even though it has one of the stupidest bugs I've ever seen. I just really hate how lore-wise, I literally picked up none of it. Literally 0 pieces throughout my whole playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. What makes a game difficult? Is it puzzles, bosses, nerve control, or a mixture of all of those things? I think almost any answer to that question is a valid one. However, I think there's something all players, especially Five Nights at Freddy's players, can agree does not make a game difficult: RNG. Standing for random number generation, RNG is basically just when the game decides to go, and make something happen in the game at complete random with no thoughts of balancing or user experience whatsoever. In a lot of games, RNG can be a good thing and add to the overall experience, whether that be contributing to grinding for a really good gear in a dungeon of an MMO, or contributing to a loot box if you're a degenerate and play Hoyoverse games. But something I think FNAF players can agree on is that RNG is almost never a good thing, and the game we'll be diving into today implements it in some of the worst ways of all time. Join me as we dive into the world of the Tubbyland Archives. Now, without further ado, let's jump in to Tubbyland Archives Act 1. The Tubbyland Archives begins with a cutscene. The camera pans around the building, showing the various rooms, and we listen to a quick phone call from the CEO of the company we will soon be working for. He tells us that we've gotten the job, and that we'll meet with a guy named Joey, and he'll be teaching us what we need to do. The camera pans past 2 of the antagonists we will soon be introduced to, and oh my lord, do I need to talk about how awesome this game looks. These characters look terrifying. I love them, and I honestly feel like this game's menu screen is one of the best FNAF menu screens I've ever seen. The way the characters shake as they reach out for you, mixed with the unsettling background music, provides a very uncomfortable feel, which I think fits great into a FNAF game. Anyways, moving on to night 1, we're introduced to who I can only assume to be Joey. However, through in-game subtitles, we can see the game refers to him as 03. Not really sure why. The night 1 phone call is just about as uneventful as I'm sure you could have guessed. 03 explains the basics, and not much lore is mentioned at all. 03 tells us that the guy that worked before us was named Evan, but other than that, not much else is revealed. And while yes, I could describe to you how he describes what our job is, but it's kind of my job to tell you what our job is, so let's do that. There is only one threat that is activated on night 1, that threat being Poe. For those of you who are grown adults and don't know anything about the Teletubbies, Poe is the red one. However, before we can actually talk about Poe, we should talk about the general tools we have at our disposal. Obviously, we have cameras, but the cameras in this game have 3 unique functions. Okay, 1 unique function. I've seen the other 2, I'm just trying to be nice because apparently I'm way too negative in these reviews. Let's go over the 2 non-unique functions first. To start, we have our camera flashlight, just like FNAF 2. It lights the camera up. Who would have imagined? Wow. However, the flashlight battery in this game that's displayed in the top corner of the camera actually goes down pretty fast. So that's why in my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black, it's very common for you to see me flash the light on a camera for a fraction of a second. Since as you play this game, you'll learn where to look for each of the animatronics, a super brief flash should really be all you need. The next familiar mechanic is an audio lure, except unlike most audio lures, it won't make you want to kill yourself by only working a handful of times before forcing you to stare at a reboot monitor for 300 years. I'll explain how the audio lure mechanic works when it becomes relevant. Before that, let's talk about the last mechanic in the cameras. The reboot? The shock. I don't really know what to call it. There's a button on the cameras that allows you to remotely turn off and on said camera. There's almost never a reason to turn a camera off, so I'm just gonna pretend like that doesn't even exist. But turning a camera on is very important because of one main mechanic this game has that just makes me smile from ear to ear. You see, that joke was funny because I lied. In the top corner of the screen, you'll also see a camera stability percentage. Throughout the night, this number will decrease, and each camera has its own dedicated percentage. When the percentage reaches 0, that camera will automatically shut off, and you'll have to go to said camera and turn it back on. This mechanic is in no way annoying by itself, but when mixed with a certain dickhead we'll talk about later, this will quickly become one of the main things in this game that makes you want to detonate a flash grenade next to an infant. You can also hide behind some curtains in your office, but that won't become necessary until a later night. Now, pivoting to talking about Poe. Something I'll hand to this game is that it does a really good job at making every character be a constant thorn in your side. No character can be forgotten about. No character can you just let your brain go on autopilot to deal with. You constantly have to be aware of each character, which is something I think is a very good thing in a FNAF game. Poe will do what most robots in FNAF games tend to do, wander around the building and make their way to your office. Something you'll notice about a lot of characters in this game is their ease of ability to juke you. Unlike most FNAF games where each character usually only has one main form of attack, most of the characters in the Tubbyland archives can attack both of the doors in your office. And because of the way the building is set up, there are multiple opportunities for the characters to swap which side they're going to attack on, making it even more important for you to constantly be monitoring all of them. Poe is the only character in this game that is affected by the audio lure, thankfully. However, there is a very big problem with Poe that I will bring up towards the end of this video, but for now, Poe pretty much is just Springtrap. Don't let her get to your doors or she'll insert herself inside of you, and you can only lure her into rooms she's adjacent to. Ooh, I don't like that. Call it back this way, bro. Come here, please! Poe by herself is not a formidable foe, but will likely become the character you forget about the most later down the line. Of course, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without post-night minigames where all you do is walk around, now would it? Rest assured, Tubbyland Archives has those as well. However, there is something I want to mention about these minigames. The way they control is honestly really satisfying. The camera moves with the player, but it doesn't lock to them. It glides around their movement, which leads to a super satisfying feel. Not only that, but the art doesn't have that typical purposeful dog shit look to it. It looks like this could actually be a game inside of an arcade machine, and I think that's great. But what happens in the first minigame? Well, to start, we play as the green Teletubby, Dipsy. We're told to find Nunu, and once again, for those of you that know nothing about the Teletubbies, Nunu is this fucking vacuum that's alive, or something. After wandering around the building, we find Nunu in a closet and his eyes glow red, which means he's evil because duh, that's what red means. And we're told that Nunu was sleeping. Duh, that's why his eyes were closed, you moron. I can't believe the game is having to explain this to you. On night 2, we get another call from O3. He explains not a whole lot, basically just goes over the 2 new animatronics, but I feel like I can do a hell of a lot better than he can. He does bring up Nunu, the vacuum cleaner, and explains that the CEO worked on building him himself. He always told the workers to stay away from it because it was too dangerous. I find that a bit odd, and so does O3, but we're gonna not question it. It's just FNAF things, I suppose, right? Anyways, on to the 2 threats this night introduces, the previously mentioned Nunu and the yellow Teletubby, Lala. Lala is the real main antagonist of this game, at least she feels like it, as she is the character that without a doubt will require the majority of your attention throughout this game, and is the first major occurrence of painfully AIDS RNG throughout this experience. Lala is one of the few characters that can be seen on the cameras without the use of the flashlight since her eyes glow. She does the same thing that Poe does. She can attack both doors and has multiple points throughout the cameras where she can swap sides and fuck your day up. Generally, her mechanic is easy. Lala will never move backwards, so once she's at the entrance of one of your doors on the cameras, if you later check and she is no longer there, then you know she's about to attack you. And when she is, all you have to do is hide behind the curtains and she'll jump into the office to look for you. Yes. Yo, I would not want those things to grip my hips. I ain't not gonna lie. Them big fucking oven mitt hands, bro. But she does have the mind of a toddler and will quickly forget why she wandered into the office in the first place and promptly leave. Where Lala becomes incredibly ass-clenchingly AIDS is when we start to talk about what I'm going to call her final bait and switch. The 2 final cameras she will appear on before attacking are camera 1A and camera 1B. However, there is a camera in between that can serve as one final point for Lala to switch sides, that being camera 2A, the worst fucking camera in the whole game. When Lala is on either of her 2 kill cameras, when she has a successful movement opportunity, she will do one of 2 things. 1, she'll just prepare to enter your office, wherein you'll need to hide behind the curtains, or she can do the much more frustrating option, move into the bait and switch camera. When she's in this camera, she obviously won't be able to enter your office. However, when comparing this switch camera to the other one, it becomes a lot more infuriating. The other 2 switch cameras are 4A and 1B. This is the only other point in the cameras where the characters can switch attack sides. However, the difference between these cameras and the bait and switch cameras is that the bait and switch cameras have a camera in between. And because of this, when Lala is in the bait and switch camera and has a successful movement opportunity, she can enter any of the 2 kill cameras, even if it's the kill camera she just came from. This alone isn't a huge problem, but when we get into later nights and everyone is more aggressive and there's more characters active, in most cases, you would almost always rather have Lala just move into her attack phase so that she'll reset to camera 5A and you can focus on someone else for a bit. However, there will be many occurrences where Lala will just jump between her bait and switch cameras, leading to you need to spend way more time on her than you ever should have, which will end up getting you killed by either Poe or another character I'll mention later in the long run. The other character this night adds is the previously mentioned Nunu. Nunu, thankfully, isn't a normal attacking character. Nunu is actually in the office with you, and you can see him behind the curtains you go to hide in. He's just a preventative measure to stop you from hiding in the curtains all night. If you stay there for too long, he'll kill you. Pretty simple sugar. After beating night 2, we're tossed into another mini-game segment, this time playing as Poe. Once again, we have to go find Nunu. After a bit of exploring, we find him getting his clanker ass to work, filling up the custard machine to make some bomb-ass desserts that I personally will never eat because I'm not really a sugar type of guy. Moving on to night 3, we get yet another phone call from O3. He tells us that everyone who works in this building never feels like they're alone when they enter the building, and no shit, there are a bunch of murder robots always trying to fornicate with them, so that checks out. O3 expresses that he will be trying to look through some of the files later on to figure out what's going on, and if I were to guess, that's not gonna bode well for him. O3 also mentions another Teletubby, and of course, that character is the new threat on this night, that being the purple Teletubby, Tinky Winky. Tinky Winky is probably the least frustrating character throughout this whole game. Same shit as every other character. Go to your office, juke you along the way. Except the way to deal with Tinky Winky is different. We're told that he doesn't like high-frequency noises. Well, luckily for us, the flashlight on our cameras just so happens to make that correct frequency of noise to piss him off. He also makes a very noticeable sound cue on whichever camera he's on. So if he's ever in the wrong place, just hold the light on him and he'll move backwards. No problem whatsoever. The post-night 3 minigame has us play as Lala. Once more, we're tasked with finding Nunu. Spoiler alert, this is what we're gonna have to do in each of the minigame segments. After some searching, we find him taking out the trash. However, as I'm sure you could already see because you have eyes, the trash he's taking out definitely looks like flesh and blood, so that's just awesome now, isn't it? Night 4 gives us my favorite phone call in this entire game. Something I really need to point out is how amazing the voice actors in this game really did. The acting is nothing short of amazing. It never sounds like the characters are acting, it always just sounds so real.
It turns out I'm not crazy. There's something going on around here, and it's not good. I don't really know how much I can say over the phone. I mean, who knows who's listening? But I think I might be onto something. This whole company goes way deeper than I ever thought.
And that's what I think all good acting should be. You shouldn't even think that the characters are actors, just that they're characters. And I think this game does an almost perfect job at that. Moving on to what's actually said, O3 did some digging and explained that the entire company goes way deeper than he expected. He found some things that he probably wasn't supposed to see, but he never gets into explaining what. Before he does, the CEO comes to his office. They have a brief yet uncanny conversation. The CEO knows that someone had been looking at the company documents, and it's clear that he thinks O3 did it, which, to be fair, he did. O3 denies ever doing so because, of course, why would he admit that? And the CEO says that he's got his eyes on him. He asks O3 to come in the next night to help look for some of the documents, and O3, while confused as to why, agrees anyways. The CEO leaves the office and O3 quickly hangs up the phone. This night also introduces the final threat in this game, Dipsy. Dipsy is another character that you won't really have to focus on all too much. Dipsy will appear in your front office door. He has a few phases he can move through before you see him in his main attack phase, where he's fully leaned into your office. When you see him like this, all you have to do is hide. A very faint sound cue will play when he leaves, and you'll be able to come back out and continue. Not a very difficult character to deal with, but a character that does force you to pull the camera down every once in a while. And in a game where the camera is easily the most important tool, this isn't something you're gonna want to be doing very often. This is also the night where you'll really start to notice how difficult this game really is. The characters really start to move quickly on night 4, and the pressure present and nerve control required really starts to stand out. In the comments of my first episode of this game, which you can watch over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I got several comments warning me about how hard this game really is, and upon reaching night 4, I finally really started to feel it. But nothing could prepare me for the complete bullshit I was about to go through come night 5. But before we can talk about night 5, we need to talk about the post-night 4 minigame. In it, we play as Tinky Winky and find Nunu cleaning up a spill, as the game puts it. This spill very clearly is blood, and I have my suspicions as to whose blood it could be, but I'll explain my thought process after we talk about night 5. Night 5's phone call is a doozy, to say the least. O3 explains that the CEO set him up. He came in the night the CEO asked and walked right into a death trap. He mentioned he found a box in a party room that smelled terrible. He found several documents. Reading them revealed everything. He explains that the entire building and business we're in now is a cover-up. But before he can tell us more, Nunu finds him and kills him in what I can only describe as one of the most uncomfortable phone calls I've ever heard.
Shit.
No. Oh, are the... Okay, that was a pretty cool fucking phone call, dude. I can't even lie. That was actually badass. And I can only assume he is the owner of the blood that Nunu was cleaning up in the post-Night 4 minigame. But now we get the displeasure of talking about Night 5. Single-handedly, one of the most infuriating gameplay experiences I've ever had in my entire life. This is where the RNG gets atrocious, and where I find this game's biggest asshole. Poe. As I've already mentioned, Poe acts very similarly to Springtrap in FNAF 3, and if you know anything about FNAF 3, then you know the worst thing about it is the dreaded 1 in 7. For those of you who have played FNAF 3, that phrase probably just sent chills down the back of your spines. 1 in 7 refers to the 1 in 7 chance Springtrap has to completely fucking ignore your audio lure, and is single-handedly the reason why FNAF 3 is even as hard as it is, as it takes a system that would be built around skill and turns it into a game of, is Springtrap gonna fuck you or not? This is exactly what Poe does. At least, I'm pretty sure, is what she does. There's no official documentation about her AI, and as far as I'm aware, there's no decompiling of this game to double check. But I'm almost positive she has the same mechanic. Maybe it isn't 1 in 7, but it's almost 100% 1 in something. Because if it's not a 1 in something, then that means that Poe moves around the camera so quickly that your audio lure doesn't even matter. I tried my absolute hardest, but I could not for the life of me beat Night 5. I gave up, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. If my theory of Poe ignoring some of the sound cues is correct, then fuck trying to beat that night and just waiting for luck to be on my side. The time you have to wait to use the audio lure after using it is way fucking longer than in FNAF 3. And sure, you never have to reboot it, but that doesn't really matter when Poe moves at the fucking speed of the goddamn Roadrunner. Seriously, go watch my Night 5 playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black. It's almost laughable how quickly Poe gets to my office despite me using the audio lures at every single opportunity that I could. You could also just watch to see some salt since there's plenty of that, but like, goddamn, this night is hard. This game is fucking hard. I should have listened, but I was thinking, well, how hard could it possibly be? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. It's impossible to tell how hard the game is because the skill ceiling is capped by how lucky you get, so I don't even know how difficulty could be measured. But I need to relax a bit. Sure, I wasn't able to beat this game, but I know there are some people out there who were able to, and because of those people, indie fuel, that I'm able to finish talking about this game. So congratulations to all of you who put yourself through this horseshit torment. I appreciate you. The post-Night 5 minigame actually takes place before the Night 4 minigame. We play as Tinky Winky once again and actually get to see who, once again, I can only assume to be 03, dragging himself out of a room before all of the animatronics hold him down as Nunu kills him and he's left to die on the floor alone with no one to ever come and help him. We get our check for the week, but before we decide to piss off forever, our character begins to speak to himself. He wants to go back for one more night, to see if 03 is still alive, and if he isn't, he wants to get the documents that 03 mentioned so that his death wouldn't be in vain. Personally, if it was me, I don't care if 03 was my brother. He's dead as disco, and there would be no way in fuck I'd be going back there in a million years. But Parker, our player's name, decides to, and we get to jump into Night 6, an experience I never got to see for myself, and I'm glad I didn't. As far as I'm aware, nothing new was added to Night 6, just being a more difficult, more RNG-based fuckfest of a night, but after completing it, we move on to the post-Night 6 minigame. This minigame is actually a minigame, not just a walk-around simulator. In this minigame, we have to find 10 of the documents in the basement, all while the animatronics patrolling you are trying to find us. If at any point they see you, you're dead because they're much faster than you are. So you have to strategically hide by staring at a fucking wall every once in a while whilst they pass, and eventually escape the building. I obviously never did this because I couldn't even beat Night 5, let alone Night 6, but even just watching somebody else complete this minigame
Even this minigame looks really fucking hard, so I'm grateful that I never had to do it. But that's all Tubbyland's Archives Act 1 has to offer. Yes, I did say Act 1, which would imply that there are more on the way. In fact, Act 2 does actually have a Game Jolt page, but with no updates on said page for over 2 years, who's to say if it will ever actually come out or not? I personally really hope it does, because the story of this game actually seems intriguing to me, which is odd for a FNAF game. Overall, the Tubbyland Archives can prove to be an incredibly frustrating, luck-stricken experience. However, I don't think that can fully take away from how amazing this game both looks and how it is mechanically if you can put aside the 2 major RNG points that it has. The story is mysterious and is everything I need to want a sequel, and I really hope it does come. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that the Tubbyland Archives is nothing but reimagined slop of a FNAF fan game that came out years ago? Let me know in the comments below. In my Those Nights at Rachel's video, I asked you guys what your biggest FNAF hot take was, and my favorite answer was this one by an avid panda lover. They said the trope of, quote, employee killed children and that's why the animatronics are hostile, end quote, has been completely overdone by every fan game, and I totally agree. I would love to see a fan game story where child murder isn't the key and major plot point, and honestly, it almost seems like that's the direction the game we covered today is taking. The question of this video is, what is the most frustrating experience you've ever had playing a FNAF game? With the question of the video being asked, subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. I've been Dexter, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!